Become a wizard lord with a copy system. Daniel Hawkins travels to a fantasy world and awakens the replication system. You may not know what I can do, but I know what you can do. A person who is proficient in one element is a rare master, so what am I who is proficient in all elements? From a student to a noble, from a noble to a lord, the whole journey is filled with a happy atmosphere. Chapter 1, Crossing. Outside Song Town, there is a cave entrance deep in the forest. It started to rain in the sky, and the rain hit Qian's Haihao on the back of his neck. He opened his eyes slightly, his neck was sore, and he slowly raised his head. You're awake. A woman tied to a pillar said to him, I thought you were dead. Qian's Haihao subconsciously wanted to move, but found that he was also tied to a pillar. What's going on? Before he could ask, he felt a stinging pain in his head, and scenes flashed through his mind. After a while, after the original owner's memories merged, he realized that he had traveled through time. The original owner was Daniel Hawkins, a poor boy in his early 20s from Songke Town. In the past 3 years, there has been a famine. Everyone who could escape fled Songke Town, and the Hawkins family was no exception. Daniel's father believed that he would die no matter what, so it was better to escape to the big city to try his luck. Moreover, they had relatives in the city, so they could do it in the early stage. Take refuge first. Daniel's father was originally considered a noble. After all, a knight who had made military exploits also had his own small fiefdom. But then one time he drank too much in a tavern and said some disrespectful words about the church. Under the manipulation of the local bishop, not only did his father lose his fiefdom, but he was also deprived of his knighthood. Then the Hawkins family came to live in Songke Town. Just 3 days ago, when the Hawkins family took all their savings and prepared to go to Shadow Moon City the next day, 3 young men, 2 men and a woman, came to the town. Wearing armor and carrying swords, they threatened in the tavern that they were going to explore the forest to hunt for treasure, and now they wanted to recruit a local follower. When everyone saw their clothes and behavior, as well as the family crests on their chests, although they couldn't see the pattern clearly, they could at least confirm that they were noble and dandy children, and they also said they were going to a place full of wild beasts. The dangerous forest of monsters, everyone avoids for fear of not getting there. When no one responded, the lady in the team said, whoever is willing to follow us, I am willing to pay 1 gold coin for him. After hearing this, everyone remained silent. Okay, 3 gold coins. Still no response. 5 gold coins. The lady raised her hand and shouted. No one responded, and the situation was a bit awkward. Do they look down upon 5 gold coins? The lady thought, it's impossible. 5 gold coins are enough to support a farmer's family of 4 for 2 years. Just when the lady wanted to increase the price, the tavern owner came out and persuaded them to stop making trouble. No one would risk their lives in the forest. He advised them to have a good night's rest after drinking and go back to where they came from the next day. Just listen to the lady hum, a group of men are all so cowardly that they are not as brave as a woman like me. Just after they left the tavern, the original owner Daniel stepped forward and asked, can I earn 5 gold coins as your follower? Does this count? The woman pointed to her fierce bear crest and said, are you kidding me? The promises made by our tour family have never been fulfilled. Well, I'm willing to be your follower. Daniel said. They took a quick look at Daniel privately and said, what do you know? The original owner Daniel immediately promoted himself. After all, now is the time to use money. 5 gold coins can be used to cover the rent for the second half of the year in the slums of Shadow Moon City. I will show you the way, carry your luggage, make a fire to cook, wash your clothes, beat your back. The lady interrupted him, okay, do you know how to use a sword? I know a little bit. Daniel's father had trained him in some swordsmanship when he learned that he had no magic talent. That's good. We can't control you when you are in danger. In this way, the 5 of them headed to the forest. Soon after they went deeper into the forest, they discovered a cave with a bonfire outside the cave entrance. Under the instructions of the lady, they all hid behind the big trees and observed secretly. Will there be treasures in this cave? The lady thought, and saw 2 ogres walking out of the cave. Oh my god, they are ogres. The lady was quite excited, even if there is no treasure, it is very exciting to kill them. The other 2 male followers had already given up. One of them lowered his voice and persuaded, Miss Alia, let's go back. It's too dangerous. Arya smiled and said, look at you cowards. Although the ogres look huge, they are stupid. In this way, that guy. She pointed at Daniel and said, you go up to attract them without fighting them. After you attracted their attention, we attacked them from behind. The original owner Daniel stared at them, pointed at himself and stammered, me. Don't worry, we are professionally trained and won't let anything happen to you. Daniel shook his head. You are working for our Tull family. This is an honor. Daniel shook his head harder. Aaliyah called him a coward and tried all kinds of provocations, but Daniel still didn't want to go. In desperation, she said. In this way, after the matter is completed, I will give you 10 gold coins. The original owner was unmoved. 20 gold coins. Make a deal. Just when Daniel was about to rush towards the cave, his eyes went dark and he lost consciousness. When he woke up again, he and Alia were tied to the pillar. From now on, Qian's Haihao is Daniel, and Daniel is Qian's Haihao. He remembered that he was still staying up late to prepare English lessons and make PPT for students. He just took a rest on the desk and traveled through time. Forget about traveling through time. He is not a royal relative or an aristocratic emperor, but a down-and-out aristocrat. Now he has fallen into the hands of ogres. I wonder if this is the beginning of the collapse of the world. It would be great if I traveled through time earlier, Daniel thought, so that he would definitely not follow these 3 idiots to this forest. At this moment, a voice sounded in his mind. Host memory fusion completed. Copy system activated. Here it comes, my golden finger is here. He opened the panel with his mind. There was only copy system written on the top, and the interface was blank. There was nothing. However, there was a mall in the left corner. He clicked it and saw that the mall interface said, Mall system loading. What's going on? Is the system stuck? Just as Daniel was still studying the system panel, a low roar came from the cave. I saw 2 ogres dragging the 2 followers out. Rob, David, are you okay? Arya shouted. After the ogre put them on the ground, he poured 2 buckets of water at them, and they woke up. Miss, save me! They shouted. What do you want to do? Arya shouted, I'm trying to, fuck. Daniel shouted, if he hadn't been tied up, his legs would have gone limp. The 2 ogres each held the foot of the follower, stood upside down, pulled out a knife from the ground and directly scratched their throats. Soon their heads were stained red, and the buckets of water that had just been poured at them were used to collect their blood. The 2 ogres looked at the horrified expressions of Arya and Daniel, and couldn't help but roar with laughter. At this time, another ogre wearing a robe and a magic wand on his waist came out of the cave. As soon as he came out, the 2 slit-throat ogres immediately shut up and looked very respectful. The robed ogre looked very angry. Although Daniel could not understand, it was obvious from his tone that he was scolding the 2 cutthroat ogres. After scolding, the 2 cutthroat ogres carried the people in one hand and the bucket in the other hand back to the cave. The robed ogre was guarding them outside. He stretched out his hands, sometimes opening and sometimes clenching his palms, back and forth several times, accompanied by roars. What is he doing? Daniel asked. Looking at his movements, it should be like practicing casting. As soon as Alia finished speaking, the ogre summoned a shield, and the range of this shield just wrapped Daniel inside. With a ding sound, Daniel opened the system and saw the interface read. Arcane shield detected, please ask if the host wants to copy. Yes. Loading. Loading completed. Ice shield LV1. Then, Daniel felt a strange feeling all over his body, and he could summon the ice shield. Chapter 2. Ogre. It's impossible. Alia said, how can an ogre have magic? The professor said that except for humans, no other creature can have magic. That means your knowledge system should be updated. Daniel complained, what's the use of talking about it now? It's obvious that people can do magic. Who are you talking to? Alia said, you are talking to Tuesday. Come on, I know your tour family is awesome. Awesome. Alia was stunned for a while. Don't talk about these things, think about how to get out of trouble. Daniel said, while looking at the distance between Arya and him, it was only about half a meter. If he used the ice shield, it would be possible. Wrapped her in it. After the rope ogre successfully cast the spell, he danced happily. After a while, a fragrance wafted out of the cave, and the rope ogre immediately entered the cave. Even Daniel and Alia's stomachs began to growl, and they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Damn it, is that meat edible? I'm not Hannibal. Daniel thought. Alia also came back to her senses and quickly said hey, but she still closed her eyes slightly and inhaled the fragrance greedily. The fragrance was really fragrant, and it was not forbidden to smell it. Suddenly she opened her eyes. Hey, don't ogres eat raw meat? They can actually cook. Is it weird to know how to cook if you can even do magic? Daniel said. No, 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 I saw ogres 3 years ago. My father caught them. They were very savage. It is also recorded in the book that they have no intelligence. Alia began to mutter to herself. We've obviously fallen into their trap, a trap that can make us lose consciousness. Could they even know hallucinogenic magic? Impossible. He just spent so much effort to cast a shield. Hallucination is a high-level magic. They must have used hallucinogenic alchemical drugs in the surrounding plants or the ground, but who gave these drugs? What about theirs? Hey, my eldest lady, what do you think these things are for now? Daniel turned his head and glanced at the 3 ogres feasting in the cave and said, while they are eating, quickly find a way to escape. Asshole, how dare you, a pariah, instigate me to come here? Alia said angrily. Why are you talking so much nonsense? When they finish eating, it will be our turn for the next meal. Do you want to have your throat cut and bled? Alia remembered the scene just now and couldn't help but trembled. Could it be that she was going to explain it here? If I had known better, I wouldn't have sneaked out and taken risks. However, fear is nothing but fear. As an honorable nobleman, the more he is at the critical moment of life and death, the less likely he is to lose his identity and grace in front of the common people. As his father said, people can die, but the family name must not be insulted. You are just a pariah. I understand that you are afraid of death. But you have to know that some things are more important than living, just like our picture. Hey? What are you going to do? Alia's eyes widened. Escape. Daniel took out a dagger from the old and rough boots. This was what his father had always warned him about, and he should hide an extra weapon as a backup when going out. This is equivalent to when my mother emphasized to bring toilet paper when going out. The original owner used to dislike his father's nagging, but now it really comes in handy. The dagger was very sharp, and Daniel cut the hemp rope in one fell swoop. Out of the original owner's instinct, he turned around and left. Wait. Alia lowered her voice. What's wrong? You can untie me too. I don't dare, I'm just a pariah. Besides, aren't your tour family afraid of death? Stop talking nonsense, help me cut the rope, I will give you 30 gold coins immediately, and then you can run away. Daniel originally didn't intend to leave the situation alone, he just wanted to take the opportunity to tease this aristocratic lady who didn't know the heights of the world. But when he heard the 30 gold coins, he didn't know whether it was the original owner's instinct or his own instinct, so he gave it to him without saying a word. She let go. The moment the rope fell to the ground, the rope ogre happened to come out. After seeing the 2 of them untied, he roared, and the other 2 ogres also picked up the guys and ran out of the cave. Run quickly. As soon as Alia picked up the sword, she was pulled away by Daniel. Why are you holding me back? Why are you so afraid of death? As long as the sword is in my hand, why should I be afraid of them? Besides, their minds are indeed not very good and they can't even be searched clean. After saying that, she threw away Daniel. With his hand, he held the sword in front of him and took a good posture, just kill the one in the robe. Daniel looked at her momentum and thought, could it be that she was really sure? Just as Arya rushed over, 2 ice picks appeared out of thin air above the robe ogre's head, one of which hit Arya quickly. Alia was surprised and dodged. Although she dodged, the ice pick still scratched her boots and there was thick white frost around them. She felt that her calves were numb from the cold. Then the second ice pick flew over, and this time she had no time to hide. Just when the ice pick flew to her head, she clenched her fists, closed her eyes and screamed, "Ah, help!" When she opened her eyes, she saw Daniel standing in front of her with his back to her. "Ah! I never thought that a servant like you would sacrifice yourself for your master. The Tour family will never forget you." Alia murmured, "By the way, what's your name?" "My name is Daniel Hawkins. I am not a servant, and you are not my master." Daniel turned around and said, You are not dead." Alia felt a cool breath. She looked carefully and found a translucent barrier with ice blue light flashing around Daniel's body. Isn't this the ice shield practiced by the ogre? According to her observation, this shield is still at a very low level, but this has surprised Alia. Are you a wizard? No, I just learned it. After Daniel finished speaking, a ding sound rang in his mind, and he hurriedly opened the system panel. Ice cone spell detected. Do you want to activate the ice cone spell? Yes. Ice cone spell has been activated. Ice cone spell LV1. In less than a second, he knew the ice cone spell, but he could only cast one ice cone. But this was enough to kill the unprepared robed ogre in front of him. The ice cone went straight through the opponent's forehead, and the robed ogre fell to the ground. The other two ogres saw their companions fall to the ground, and they roared and rushed towards them with great swords. Fortunately, the ice cone spell was instant, although there was a cooldown time, but fortunately the two ogres were far away and their steps were clumsy, so Daniel released ice cones one after another, stabbing them directly at the ogre's forehead. All three ogres fell down like this. Alia looked at Daniel, then at the dead ogre, covering her mouth with her eyes wide open. Chapter 3. Escape. Is this the follower I recruited at the beginning? Alia looked incredulous. Ice Cone is a spell that is close to the middle level in the Wizard Academy. Hawkins. Alia thought about this surname again and again, and recalled it for a long time, but she just felt familiar. However, she is now sure that Daniel in front of her is a wizard. You are hiding it very well. Alia pointed the sword at him. You are a wizard, why didn't you say it at the beginning? What is your purpose in approaching me? Daniel looked at her and felt speechless. I told you the magic I just learned, but you didn't believe it. Alia suddenly clapped her hands. I know, you are a high-level wizard, at least you are a third-level wizard in terms of level. You secretly released the hallucination to make us fall into a coma. Including the three ogres, especially the magic ogre, is your masterpiece. All of this is directed and acted by you. You killed two of my men with their hands, and then stood in front of me to save me, just to get my trust is for the purpose of getting close to me. Daniel just shrugged and sighed in the face of her reasoning. He didn't know what to say, but he wanted to hear what she could say next. This was the first funny person he met after crossing. Then what is the purpose of my approaching you? Humph, you are either an enemy of my tour family. I thought you wanted to kill me at first, but I thought it was unlikely. If you want to kill me, according to your level as a third-level wizard, you don't need to make it so complicated. That's another situation, you want to kidnap me. Hearing this, Daniel almost spit out a mouthful of blood, and then laughed. When Alia saw him laughing, she felt that she was right. She immediately raised her sword to guard against it. I can't believe that you are the biggest enemy. No wonder you have been so hard to sell yourself to me. After that, her mind turned quickly again, looking at the terrain, and touched the shadow of the mist in her pocket. This is a ball made by an alchemist. It will fog up when it hits the ground, which can be used for escape. If I had known that I would have to face the wizard, I would have brought the shadow of silence. Daniel saw that Alia seemed to be really going to take action, so he quickly stopped the farce. Okay, I don't want to kidnap you, don't worry, I have no interest in you. Seeing that she was still defensive and suspicious, and her left hand began to move, he continued, how about this, you go first, don't worry, I'll stay away from you, at worst I'll go into that cave, I'll count 100 times and then come out. After saying that, Daniel faced her and slowly retreated towards the cave entrance. After all, he was afraid that Alia, this crazy woman, would attack him by surprise. Seeing this, Alia just put down her sword, but Daniel walked towards him again, and she resumed her defensive posture. Hey, you still have ideas about me? Daniel smiled and said, No, I don't have any ideas about you, but you have to pay me. Alia was stunned and didn't think of it for a while. When you recruited me, you promised to give me 5 gold coins. I just cut the rope for you for 30 gold coins. In other words, you have to give me 35 gold coins. That's it. Alia breathed a sigh of relief, and then took out the purse and threw it directly to him. Here, all 35 gold coins are in it, all for you. I hope you can really keep your promise. Daniel picked up the purse and shook it. Then what will you do? As long as I report the name and badge of the tour family in the town, someone will naturally come to help. Alia said while retreating. So powerful, so you came all the way from your territory and reported your name. Of course, otherwise you think the Tour family is just a name for nothing. Daniel was also retreating. Well, next time if you really want to take a risk, try hiding your identity, you will have a different experience. What experience? At least you can't walk this far. Tiscalia saw that the distance was enough, turned around and ran. Finally sent this woman away, she is really good at talking. Daniel had already felt a little uncomfortable after crossing over, and he had to listen to her nagging. He opened his purse and found 35 gold coins. These were the hard currency of this world. He wanted to further understand how the system worked, but he decided to go back first. After all, this forest was still quite dangerous. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly thought of something. After all, since he was here, he might as well search. From the 2 corpses of the henchmen alone, he found 3 silver rings, a gold ring and 20 silver coins. The harvest was not small, fortunately he did not leave like this. He also found that the cave was deeper than he thought, and the light was much darker. Coupled with the pungent smell of rotting flesh and wet soil, he was struggling whether to go in. And he was not sure whether there would be danger inside. After struggling for a while, he decided to go in, just in case there was really a treasure. He picked up the torch, lit it with the flint he carried with him, and continued to walk in. Fortunately, the cave was not as deep as he had imagined, and he soon reached the end. However, what surprised him was that there were a pile of scattered human skeletons and some beast skeletons inside, and cloth armor and boots were scattered all over the ground. My God, how many people did these 3 ogres eat? Moreover, why did these people come here? Were they all looking for treasure? He shone the torch on the ground again, and was surprised to see a pile of coins scattered on the ground. He stepped hard on the pile of corpses, and the coins fell again. Daniel took a cloth bag and hurriedly collected the coins. Although there were not many coins, they were mainly silver and copper coins, but they were still money. If they really wanted to move to the city as his father said, these coins would at least be a good helper when they settled in the city in the early stage. He couldn't tell whether this was the original owner's idea or his own idea. No matter what, he packed up the coins one by one, ran out of the cave, and breathed in fresh air. He looked back at the cave. If he couldn't take it away, he would have thought about carrying all the armor inside, maybe he could sell it for money, but he thought about it and gave up. After all, many of the armors were rusty. Even if he took them to the town, no one would buy them. After all, food is much more valuable than armor now. If he took them to the city to sell, it would be even more uneconomical, and the freight might not be enough to cover the loss. Just as he was about to leave, thinking that there was nothing to loot, his eyes stopped at the 3 ogre corpses again. No need to search, they must have no money, Daniel muttered, but he still went to search, and sure enough, there was nothing except weapons. The 2 big swords were very heavy, and they must be very valuable according to their weight, but it was a pity that he couldn't take them away. The only thing he could take away was the magic wand of the robed ogre. When he picked it up, he felt a force coming out of the magic wand and gathering in his body. He immediately released the ice cone spell, and he smashed it towards the ground, and his speed and strength increased. He was sure that this magic wand could improve his magic attributes, but he didn't know how much it could be sold for. Chapter 4. Father. Rob Hawkins was so anxious that he paced back and forth at home. From time to time he would stop and slap the table and curse angrily, no more waiting for that loser. It's been 3 days. David, pack your things and we'll leave later. Emma Hawkins sat quietly aside, with red eyes. When she heard her husband's words, she also cursed, what a waste, even though he is adopted, he is still your son after all. After hearing this, Rob Hawkins also knew that his tone of voice was too strong. He looked at David Hawkins, who was about to become an adult, and fell into deep thought. Rob and Emma had been married for many years without any children, so they consulted a witch doctor and concluded that it was impossible to have children. As for not having children, it doesn't matter to Rob. But he was still alive. He had performed meritorious service for the Lord on the battlefield and obtained a small fief. Since he had a fief, he had to have heirs to pass it on, so they went to the orphanage of the local church to take care of the baby when he was still a baby. Daniel was adopted. After all, there is no shortage of abandoned babies in this world. They loved Daniel very much and thought that life would be like this for the 3 of them. However, 3 years later, not only did they lose their fiefdom because of a wrong comment they made in the tavern, but Emma also became pregnant with David. One is a biological son and the other is an adopted son. There is no doubt who is the real heir of the Hawkins family. Over time, in addition to Mother Emma, Father Rob's attitude towards Daniel also began to deteriorate. In addition, Daniel himself was not up to par. It would be fine if he did not awaken his magical power as an adult. Even none of Rob's close combat training for him was effective. Therefore, for Rob, Daniel can neither go to the Wizard Academy to be a wizard, nor can he go to the military camp to be a cavalry warrior because of his frail body. It is useless and is a drag on the family. The last group of caravans will leave in the afternoon. If we don't see him again, we will leave. At this time, there was a knock on the door, and David quickly opened the door. Brother is back, it must be him. A glimmer of light flashed in Emma's eyes, but unfortunately, the person standing at the door was not Daniel, but the tavern owner. As soon as he entered the door, he said, "Rob, I heard that you are looking for your son, Daniel, right? I saw him going to the forest with a group of noble children." "Ah, go to the forest, what is he doing in the forest?" Emma turned pale with fright. The tavern owner shrugged. "I remember hearing them say that they went on a treasure hunting expedition." His younger brother David took a deep breath and glanced sideways at his father. "Nonsense," Rob said, slamming the table with all his strength. "How many times have I told you that you can't go to that forest? How many farmers fell into the mouths of evil beasts just by logging in the fringe areas? Moreover, there are so many kinds of evil spirits in it. Beast, we can't tell. It is certain that the number of evil beasts in the forest has increased, and the scope of their activities is gradually expanding. If Lord Tour does not intervene, Sonk Town may be in danger. I advise you that famine is a small matter. Just move it if you can." The tavern owner thought that Rob was just being alarmist, and waved his hand and said, "Your son went to the forest with the Tull family. I heard that he was working as a follower for them. Maybe the Tull family has already begun to intervene, so yeah, it's not like moving. You have to know that it's not easy to settle in a big city." "Well, thank you for the notice," Rob said, walking to the door. Seeing that the tavern owner had no intention of leaving, Rob smiled and said, "Is there anything else you can do?" "There's nothing else, I just want you to know that I put aside my business in the tavern to tell you. As you know, we have been neighbors for many years, and I don't want you to worry and be afraid all day long," he said, tapping his fingers on the table. Rob understood immediately, took out a silver coin from his waist and put it on the table. "Yes, trouble." The tavern owner nodded, put away the coins, said a few words of instructions, and stood up to leave. Rob opened the door for him and saw the tavern owner smiling. "Oh, my old god, you are finally back. Your parents are worried to death." After saying that, he walked quickly, for fear that Rob would take the silver coin back. At the same time, the boss is also very grateful to the old gods. If Daniel comes back earlier, this silver coin will probably be wasted. When he reached a deserted corner, he picked up the silver coin and came out, kissing it hard. Daniel looked at his father standing at the door, his fierce eyes as if he wanted to eat him. He immediately got goosebumps, but he soon realized that this was just the subconscious reaction of the original owner. After realizing this, his father had nothing to fear. "Hi, I'm back." He walked directly past his father and entered the room to greet everyone. Facing his son's attitude, Rob was stunned for a moment. He felt something was wrong, but he couldn't tell. In the past, as long as he glared at him, Daniel would be frightened and stand still. David came over and smiled at Daniel, who patted him on the shoulder. Emma came over and cried with her son in her arms. Rob slapped the table angrily, breaking all the warmth. "Do you know how long you have delayed us? If it weren't for you, we would have arrived long ago. And I spent a silver coin in vain." "A silver coin, you know you can. How many meals can I get in a big city, you useless piece of trash?" After Daniel heard this, he took out 2 silver coins and placed them on the table. "What are you doing?" Rob said. "Didn't you spend 1 silver coin in vain? Now you have 2. Can you get over this matter?" "Oh, okay, you finally have something to show for yourself. For 2 silver coins, you risk your life in the forest." Robert took the money and continued, "You are not only a waste, but also a fool." "Enough." Daniel said, "You have always said that I am a waste since I was a child." "Humph, am I wrong?" "No, dear father." "Then why are you in a hurry? You have to admit that you are a waste. Okay, Daniel took out a gold coin and put it on the table. Let me give you a gold coin. I don't want to hear you call me a waste in the future. Where did you get this gold coin? Robert looked at Daniel, quite surprised. You know, all his savings are only 3 gold coins at most, and the silver coin he just gave is not enough for 3 gold coins. Don't worry about where I come from. Anyway, since you have taken my money, you are not allowed to call me a waste in the future. I worked hard to raise you, you can call me whatever I want. Daniel put down another gold coin. In this world, if you are poor, you can raise a child. After he grows up, he doesn't go to school and occasionally has to do some work as a helper. The money he earns has to be handed over to his father. 2 gold coins are enough to repay this so-called upbringing. Rob looked at the 2 gold coins on the table and didn't say anything. How come Daniel is so rich all of a sudden? Daniel put down another one, 3 gold coins, this is the upper limit. If you don't want it, it doesn't matter. You can continue to call me a waste, but I won't call you father anymore. Chapter 5. Entering the city. What did you say? Say it again. Rob seemed unable to believe that Daniel dared to talk to him like this. Not only him, but also Emma and David couldn't believe it. After going to the forest, Daniel seemed to have changed. There is a strong resistance to Daniel being called trash. It is probably because of the original owner. He has always dared to be angry but dare not speak out, and it is all subconsciously. I will not say the same thing a second time. You want these 3 gold coins? Don't forget it. After saying that, he was ready to put away the coins. Seeing this, Rob quickly reached out and swiped his hand on the table. 3 gold coins were directly put into his pocket, but his other hand also grabbed Daniel's chest clothes. How much money do you have left? What does it have to do with you? After saying that, Daniel wanted to push Rob away, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't push his father away. Ha ha ha, what's wrong? You can't even resist me, and you still want to protect the money? I advise you to hand over all the money and let me keep it before I beat you into a pig's head. This is the most appropriate thing. If I beat you into a pig's head, you won't be a waste even if you don't want to. I keep my money myself. Daniel said, getting ready to start casting spells. He didn't want to let his family know that he could do magic so quickly. After all, there were still many things that he hadn't figured out yet. The more he let them know, it might cause unnecessary trouble. Just when Rob was about to slap him and Daniel was about to release the ice cone technique, there was only a cracking sound. They looked around and saw that Emma had broken a pottery bowl, and they heard her say angrily, "Are you done? Rob, let me go now. If you don't let go, I won't go to the city with you, and I won't go anywhere. I will die in this town of Sonk." Faced with his wife's anger, Rob could only let Daniel go temporarily and secretly said, "Trash, after entering the city, you can take care of yourself." The trip to the city took longer than expected, but it also gave Daniel enough time to think. The background of the world is nothing more than a medieval fantasy world similar to Blue Star. The currency system was quickly figured out based on the memory of the original owner. 100 copper coins equals 1 silver coin, and 100 silver coins equals 1 gold coin. The only difficult thing is the hierarchy of titles in this world, but the king is definitely the biggest, while the pope is in another system. But it's not the original owner's fault. After all, as a civilian with no skills, knowing these titles is of no use. He might as well wash more dishes and feed more horses for his employer. As for the family relationship, it is clear at a glance. The most urgent thing to understand is this system. He clicked on the system interface. Ice Shield LV1. Ice Cone Technique LV1. Apart from the names and levels of these 2 spells, there is no other information, and the mall is still loading. He tried to secretly practice the spell while resting in the caravan, trying to see if he could upgrade the spell. Unfortunately, no matter how he practiced, the spell level was still LV1, and the only variable that could enhance the spell was the wand. In other words, equipment is also very important. He also confirmed that he had to touch the spell to activate the copy. However, if you think about it, this replication system still has risks. For example, if you are fighting with someone and the other party kills him with one move, there will be no chance of copying. Thinking of this, Daniel took a breath. If when he faced the ogre in the forest, he had not copied the opponent's ice shield first, but was directly hit by the ice cone spell, He would probably have to travel again or restart the process. It depends on the great gift of the system. He originally thought about staying in Songtown for a while, but he still chose to go to the city. After all, the Wizard Academy was only in the city. If you want to gain more magical skills, Wizard College is the best place to go. He now wants to collect various spells. As for how to upgrade the spell strength, we will talk about this later. Moreover, even if you fight against classmates in Wizard College, it is not so easy to get killed. Anyway, it's a principle you can copy spells when you encounter them. The more you encounter them, the more you copy them. Thinking of this, Daniel stretched his legs and stretched himself, and found Emma looking at her. She smiled at him and he smiled back and asked, "What's the matter?" The mother leaned forward and asked softly, "Are you Daniel, are you my son?" Daniel smiled, "You will always be my mother, and I will always be your son." After about 5 days of journey, the captain of the caravan stood up on the carriage and shouted behind him, "Morningtown has arrived." "Ah? Dawntown? Is it a town and not a city? Is this the big city that my father mentioned?" Daniel thought of this and cast a contemptuous look at his father. However, thinking about Rob's only savings, Morningside Town is indeed a better place to go. Seeing Daniel's expression, his father just glared back, pointed at him and shouted, "Hurry up and move your luggage." David never had to carry luggage. After all, his younger brother was still young in their eyes. As the eldest brother, he naturally had to do more. Moreover, David showed his magical talent when he was 15. He accidentally deformed a pottery bowl while eating. You must know that most people cannot be sure whether they have awakened magical power in their bodies until they are 18 years old. The earlier they awaken, the higher their talent will be. This was a delight for Rob and Emma. Daniel also understood their feelings. After all, there was a wizard in the family. This was one of the reasons why Rob wanted to move. He didn't want to delay David in the poor Songkei town. What surprised Daniel a little was that Dawntown was richer than he thought. There were churches, wizard academies, military camps, shops, taverns, gambling dens, entertainment houses, and even bookstores. But Daniel was still very curious about how his father's savings would survive here. Moreover, although this place is only a small witch compared to the real big cities in terms of wealth, the tuition for the Wizard Academy alone is not cheap. Even if Daniel used all the money he had, it would not be enough. At most, it would barely cover half a year's tuition. Under Rob's leadership, they walked in the town for nearly half an hour and came to a house. After knocking on the door for a while, a woman opened the door with a rolling pin. "You bastards, how many times have I told you not to knock on my door, eh?" "Hello Susan." Rob smiled. "Oh, it's you, Rob." Susan then turned around and shouted into the house, "William, your brother is here, your brother's whole family is here." Then, she walked into the house without looking back. Not sure if it was an illusion, Daniel caught a hint of contempt in her expression when she turned around. Chapter 6. Cousin. After Rob entered the house, he hugged his brother William Hawkins first, then explained his purpose and his difficulties. After hearing this, William looked at Daniel's 2 nephews and frankly said that he could let them live here first. Susan was unwilling on the spot. "You are crazy, our place is not a mansion, it is a slum." William said, "Don't we have another room in the attic? Let's tidy it up." "Then where do you put those sundries?" Susan put her hands on her hips and raised her voice, "I don't want to make the house a mess, and there is no way 4 people can fit in that small attic." William lit the pipe. "Susan, you are right, that attic cannot accommodate 4 people, so I plan to let the Daniel brothers and Henry share a room." After hearing this, Susan became even more furious. "Do you know that Henry is going to take the entrance exam for the Wizarding College tomorrow? Do you know how long our son has been preparing for this moment and how much we have paid? Now Henry has to take good care of himself. No one can disturb Henry's rest. Rob, I hope you can understand." Daniel didn't have deep memories of his uncle and aunt. They had no contact with each other since the fall of Rob Hawkins. But based on William's attitude towards them, it seems that the relationship between the 2 brothers is quite deep. As for his aunt's attitude, Daniel said he understood it. After all, no one likes poor relatives who come to seek refuge. Faced with Susan's words, William slammed the table and said angrily, "I am the head of the family, and it is my arrangement here." Facing her husband's anger, Susan did not dare to speak. She just looked aggrieved and burst into tears. Rob said awkwardly, "It's okay, It's okay, one room is enough for the 4 of us. Susan, don't worry, I will move out immediately after I find a job and save enough money. Susan felt that the sky was falling, and she held her head with both hands and kept saying, my old gods, when will the new gods come? Please have mercy on us and save us. Daniel felt really uncomfortable listening to his aunt's cold words, and couldn't help but ask, is it expensive to rent a house in Chinexite town? For you, maybe. After all, for a house like ours, you have to spend a fortune a month. Susan no longer looked at them, but went to prepare dinner. She turned her head when she picked up the flour basin. Then he turned his head and said, should I prepare your portion for dinner too? William couldn't bear it anymore, he is my brother. I haven't seen him for so many years. It's a rare visit. At least it's not too much for us to have a meal together. You live in our attic and you want to have dinner with us. Susan said, William, you can do it. Treat guests to dinner. When did you become so capable? I have become the stingiest person. Okay, it's not bad, you give me money now, it doesn't need to be much, it only costs 50 coppers, and I will cook it myself. As your woman, I will never embarrass you. You. William's face turned pale with anger. He didn't smoke or blow out smoke, he just held his pipe in his mouth. What? You can't come up with 50 coppers? Then 30 coppers. I can definitely feed everyone. If you can't come up with 30 coppers, you can't use your son's tuition fees. You can't be generous to others. In addition to William, Rob was also feeling very uncomfortable. He was about to take the money out of his pocket when he heard a short pop sound and saw a piece of silver bouncing and flipping on the table. As a junior, it would be disrespectful to treat you to a meal. Daniel said, also, Uncle William, I think it's not too late now. Can you rent a house for us? When will you find the house? Let's finish dinner. Then leave. If there is no house to rent, you can find a pub for us. Rob looked at the silver coin and couldn't help clenching his fists. He thought to himself, this worry-free child is a new arrival. Everything must be taken just in case. Daniel will really have to hand over all the money at some time. The money can't be so messy. Flowers, if it doesn't work, just grab them. Susan quickly put the money into her pocket, and Daniel said that they were going to rent a house. Her attitude was completely different, and she was overjoyed. You guys sit tight, I'll buy groceries, and I'll come back when I go. Don't worry, my craftsmanship is not bad. Bad. After Susan left, David Hawkins approached Daniel and whispered, Brother, how much money do you have? Rob couldn't help but tilted his head slightly, looking forward to Daniel's answer. Daniel looked at his brother and smiled without saying a word. I have to say that although Aunt Susan is mean, her craftsmanship is indeed quite good. Not only that, after her aunt came back, she actually found a house for them. It was not far away, just across the street. Susan said that although the house is not as big as theirs, the rent is cheap, at least 70 silver a month. For their family of 4, except that the living room is a bit small, it is completely enough to live in. Daniel said, Auntie really went to trouble to prevent us from living here. Susan said, I just don't want to wrong you. Rob kicked Daniel, and Daniel glared back, Rob Hawkins, I advise you not to touch me again. On the contrary, Rob felt that Daniel must have encountered a witchcraft in the forest. However, even if he encountered a witchcraft, his father's majesty was challenged. Just when he was about to attack his son, he only listened to his wife. Emma Hawkins said, It tastes good, but these are all vegetarian dishes, without any meat. If you count the beer, it's only 20 coppers at most. My son gave you a full silver. Even if there is a famine now and prices are soaring, I still have vegetarians in my heart. Susan blushed for a while, and was about to say something to make up for it, when the door opened. A blond young man came in with a messenger bag on his back. He was Daniel's cousin, Henry Hawkins. Susan saw her son and immediately got up and went into the kitchen and said, You're back. Come on, I've saved some food for you. She also specifically told Henry to eat in the kitchen. Daniel saw that Henry's plate was full of bacon and steak. Aren't you afraid of poor digestion after eating so much meat? Susan also felt that it was a bit unreasonable. You understand, he will go to the Wizard Academy for an exam tomorrow. A full meal will determine his success or failure. After that, she took out 50 silvers and returned them to Daniel. Daniel waved his hand and said, No need. With my aunt's craftsmanship, it's far more than 50 silver coins. Susan was stunned for a moment. What happened? She never thought Daniel would say such a thing. After all, Daniel has been working in the workplace of Blue Star for so many years. He knows a little bit about the ways of the world, and some of them have even entered his subconscious. Besides, it is said that it is important to be able to speak well when you are out, not to mention traveling through time. Daniel continued to ask, "Aunt, I wonder if I can still register for the entrance exam of the Wizard Academy tomorrow." Chapter 7. Ordinary Shield. Ah! I didn't expect you can do magic. Susan was quite surprised and looked Daniel up and down. This kid was generous and didn't look shabby like his father. "Daniel, have you made enough noise?" Robert said, "Don't listen to him, he has never awakened any magic at all." Susan breathed a sigh of relief. This time she could finally be tough. She put her hand on Henry's shoulder and said, "He awakened magic at the age of 17. Come on, Henry, show us a show." The young Henry put the last piece of bacon into his mouth, nodded, and then released a shield. "Ice shield." Daniel said it subconsciously, but it didn't look like it when he looked closely. He just felt a very weak aura wave emanating from Henry. "It's just an ordinary shield." Henry said, "If you are facing a talented person, it will take at least half a year to master the ice shield after entering school. My teacher said that you need to be an ice magician to master it." Talking about this, Daniel is no longer sleepy. He now desperately needs to know this kind of knowledge. Ice magician. Well. Henry nodded and said, "There are a total of 4 elemental specializations. At the beginning, we can only master some common magic, such as ordinary shields, levitation, shock waves, etc. After studying for a few years, we will awaken our talent for a certain element, so we will study and cultivate it specifically. Is there anyone who practices all 4 elements?" Daniel took a sip of beer and listened fascinated. There are very few wizards like this. If you can really cultivate 4 elemental specializations, you have 2 options, either serve the king directly or serve the church. But it is basically impossible. It is difficult to cultivate 2 elemental specializations at the same time. In the end, it is easy to become a wizard who knows everything but has no power. Therefore, it is the hard truth to cultivate according to your own talents. 4 elements, which 4 are they? Ice magic, fire magic, thunder magic, earth magic. Okay, stop talking, son, eat quickly. Susan said proudly, "Magic is really magical. If you attack Henry now, he will be fine. Come on, hurry up, you can even poke him with a knife." After hearing this, David Hawkins felt excited and picked up the dinner knife and stabbed Henry. At the moment of stabbing, he felt a force against him. The closer the dinner knife was, the greater the force was. In an instant, the dinner knife flew directly and felt that his entire arm was about to be dislocated. "Wow, is this a wizard? So powerful!" David couldn't help but admire. "I plan to use this shield to enroll tomorrow." Henry was full of confidence. "It took me 2 years to achieve this effect." William and Susan were very satisfied. Henry made them proud today. Their son was motivated and had good academic results. The money was not wasted. Rob said nothing and sighed slightly. Daniel had no hope at all. Although David also had the signs of awakening magic, he thought of spending a lot of money to train him, and there was only 1 year left. At worst, David would be allowed to enroll 2 years later. He didn't believe that 2 years of hard work could not afford a wizard for enrollment training. Back to the question just now, can I still sign up tomorrow? Daniel continued to ask. As long as it is still in the probation period, you can sign up at any time. The probation period starts tomorrow, and I don't know how long it will last. But it usually takes about 3 days. Rob said, "What's the point of asking so many questions? Hurry up and pack up and leave. There are almost no brick houses in the slums of downtown. If you want to rent a brick house, you have to go to the town area, and the rent will increase several times." Before they left, Susan offered them bedding. After all, she felt a little embarrassed to have accepted a silver coin from Daniel. Daniel and the others came to the other side of the street and entered the house they rented. This was their first place to stay. The house was dark, but fortunately it was clean. Before Robert could speak, Daniel pointed to the most spacious and ventilated room and said, "This room is mine. You can distribute the rest by yourselves." "What did you say?" Robert scolded, "When is it your turn to give orders? I pay the rent here. Is there a problem?" Daniel threw his luggage into the room. Rob couldn't help but want to kick him again, but was stopped by Emma. "Forget it, we are all tired, let's rest quickly." "And what he said makes sense." "Humph," Rob sneered, "I hope you can always pay the rent." Finally, he had his own independent space. Daniel lay on the bed and counted all his money. There were still 4 gold coins left, which could support 4 months of rent. If he wants to continue to have the right to speak at home, he still has to find a way to make money. The reason why there are still 4 gold coins left is that on the way from Songtown to Dawntown, he didn't know why his purse was lost at some point. Damn, his father Robert was right. But he couldn't say it, otherwise Robert would definitely sneer at him. If he hadn't hidden 5 gold coins in his shoes, he would probably have gone back to the pre-liberation era overnight. But before that, he decided to go to the Wizard Academy with Henry tomorrow. Bored, he opened the system panel, and the information was still the same as before, but this time the mall was successfully loaded, but there was only one message. The Light of Rebirth 1 million gold. Tens of millions. Wow, a total of 1 million gold, what's so expensive? He clicked on the details and explained. The Light of Rebirth allows the host to obtain a second life. A second life, no wonder it's so expensive. If he saves enough money, he still has to buy one of these things. However, at the current rate of making money, how many caves would he have to search to save up 1 million gold? There was nothing else to see, so he turned off the system and prepared to go to sleep. However, he was obviously very tired, but his mind was in a mess, and he couldn't sleep anyway. In his random thoughts, he thought of the books he had read on Blue Star, and he found that every book seemed like a projection, and every page of paper was very clearly presented in front of him. He found this very incredible, so he quickly took out a pen and paper, and copied down the projection in his mind. After a while, he had copied one of the stories in 1001 Nights in detail. This is an incredible cheat, and next he just needs to think about how to use this feature to realize it in this world. The next morning, William and Susan did not go to work and accompanied Henry to the Wizard Academy. As soon as they went out, they saw Daniel, who expressed his thoughts. "You should find a job as quickly as your father," William advised. "What's the big deal? Let your nephew go out and see the market more." Susan smiled and said, "If there is nothing else, you might as well call David." Just after she finished speaking, David showed up. He had wanted to see the Wizard Academy for a long time. In fact, Susan also had a selfish motive, which was to have more people witness Henry's achievements, so that she would be more powerful. Chapter 8, The Wizard Profession is the most popular. Just as Daniel imagined, the Dawn Wizard Academy was indeed a castle, but this castle was not as magnificent as he imagined. The young people who took the exam and their accompanying parents filled the castle gate. They had different expressions. Some were full of expectations, talking and laughing with their children, while others paced anxiously. Uncle and aunt were the anxious ones. After all, their entire fortune was invested in Henry, plus the debts they owed. Success or failure depended on this one move. Wizards are the most popular of all professions in this world, and they also have the highest threshold. Even alchemists, who are at the bottom of the contempt chain within the wizard profession, are treated much better than knights. After all, knights are very tired to train, and they are basically meat shields on the battlefield, or riding horses to put it nicely. Everyone says that we are now in the wizard era. As long as parents find that their children have a little bit of signs of magic awakening, they will do their best to cultivate their children. If you are facing some people who have not awakened magic ability but want to squeeze into the wizard track, there is a way. You have to go to the church and ask the priests to help them. They have special alchemical drugs and rune spells. It is said that the principle is to guide the power of the ancient gods into people's bodies. Of course, this kind of acquired wizard is much weaker than the innate awakening wizard. Some people can't bear the power brought by the drugs and even give up their lives. At this time, parents will go up to ask for an explanation, but the church has already prepared an official statement: your child is taken away by the ancient gods because he is very good. Rest in the arms of the ancient gods and reach eternity. Parents are helpless in the face of such statements. After all, this path is also chosen by them. However, with the development of time, the problems with the church's alchemical drugs are getting fewer and fewer. In addition, the king strongly advocates it, and more people become wizards, and naturally there are more and more wizard academies. The Wizard Academy in Dawntown was newly established this year. Since it is a new academy, they plan to recruit 1,000 wizards this time. The castle gate opened, and the noisy entrance immediately quieted down. Everyone looked at the gate in unison. A man in a dark purple robe came out, released the echo spell and said, "All students who have registered for the exam should come in, and parents should wait outside." When the students walked in one by one, Daniel was surprised to find that there were more students than he had imagined, not just those at the gate, but also the town square and the castle along the way. "Make sure that only those who have awakened magic can enter, otherwise you will regret it if you are punished," the purple-robed wizard added. "Come on!" William cheered Henry, while Susan was so nervous that she couldn't speak, and just bowed her head and clenched her fists to pray. Originally, Susan was quite happy when she thought of expanding the enrollment, but she didn't expect that there were so many students taking the exam, far more than 1,000 people. "Come on, Henry." David watched his cousin go. Brother, what are you doing?" Henry turned around and found Daniel following him, and smiled. "Brother, there's no need to see me off here." Susan said, "I know you want to go in and take a look, but only wizards are qualified to enter there. Just look at the door and have fun. It's a rare opportunity. How about this, when Henry takes the exam, I will take you around. Anyway, Daniel has money," she thought. "I'm going to take the exam too." Daniel smiled. They were all stunned, and Uncle William said for a long time, "Don't make trouble." "Yes, brother, if you go in without awakening magic, there will be a punishment. As for what kind of punishment, I don't know, but I know it will definitely not make you feel good. Anyway, if there is a punishment, it will only be me," Daniel said, and walked directly past Henry and walked into the castle. "Ah! We should stop him," William said. "Then you should stop him. What's the point of smoking here?" Susan smiled as she looked at Daniel, who disappeared in the crowd. "I'm curious if Rob will break his legs after he knows about this." "Ah, what should I do?" David said worriedly. "The castle hall has used space expansion magic, so it is more than enough to accommodate 3,000 students. When Henry Hawkins knew there were 2,000 students, he couldn't help but get nervous, which meant that at least half of the students would be eliminated. And many of these students came from big cities. They were forced to come to Dawntown after being unable to be admitted by the Wizard Academy in big cities. That is to say, these students from big cities are often very strong." Henry couldn't help but clench his fists. He looked at Daniel, who looked relaxed, and thought, why is he not nervous at all? Oh, it's normal not to be nervous. He doesn't know any magic and is just here for fun. He will definitely be punished later. According to the Purple Wizard, the exam rules are very simple. There are 2 doors on the left and right sides of the hall. Students are divided into 2 groups and take turns to enter the door for magic screening. "Henry, come on." Daniel patted his shoulder. Henry was quite disdainful. "You should worry about yourself. The first round is just to eliminate idiots like you, or those who have not fully awakened their magic. Brother, before they find you, find a chance to slip out." The results of the first round came out quickly. Henry subconsciously looked around and did not find Daniel. He thought to himself, "I hope my brother has successfully slipped out." However, he also found that there were fewer people at the scene. At this time, the purple-robed wizard announced, "After the first round of screening, there are 500 people whose magic power does not meet the standard of this academy, and they have been eliminated. There is only one person who has not awakened his magic power at all, and he will be fined 1 gold. Needless to say, that person must be Daniel," Henry thought, but 1 gold was gone just like that, and he couldn't help but gasp. If his father Robert knew about it, I wonder how he would react. "Hi, Henry." Henry was startled, turned around and found that it was Daniel. Why are you still here?" Henry said. "I passed the first round of screening just like you," Daniel said. Henry's eyes widened, and it took a while for him to return to his normal expression. "When did you awaken your magic?" Daniel shrugged and said, "Just awakened." The purple-robed wizard spoke. "The second round of tests is the last round of tests, and the best will be selected. The rules are very simple. If you are ready, continue to enter the left and right doors, and use your best skills this time. Those waiting can practice on the spot, but be careful not to hurt others, and don't destroy the academy's things." This time, not only Henry, but all the students became nervous. Chapter 9. Examination. There is a blue-robed wizard and 2 purple-robed wizards in the rooms on the left and right sides of the castle hall. The blue-robed wizard is responsible for auditing, and the purple-robed wizard is responsible for recording. I can't believe there are so many students coming this year. It's already 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there isn't even a decent one. After the students left, the blue-robed wizard stretched his body. Yes, but I bet all the garbage that others don't want comes to us. The purple-robed wizard on the side put his quill behind the ink bottle, flexed his fingers, and looked at the one with the highest score on the list. Several people, however, the good ones are also very good. Not only can they master 1.5 moves, but they can also master the thunder element. You have to know that there are very few people who master the thunder element. The blue-robed wizard nodded and said, but it's okay, the level is low, so you don't need to waste so much time. In the end, we will select the top 1,000 people based on their scores. Alas, let's choose the general among the short ones. At this time, a student came in, bowed slightly, and introduced himself nervously. Hello teachers, my name is Henry Hawkins. I am 18 years old. I awakened to magic 2 years ago, from the morning light. The blue-robed wizard stretched out his hand to stop. Okay, hurry up and show off your unique skills. I saw Henry Hawkins closing his eyes and concentrating, muttering in his mouth. For about 10 seconds, a stream of gas came out of his body, forming a shield. The blue-robed wizard yawned and glanced at the purple-robed wizard standing by the door. He saw the purple-robed wizard slashing and stabbing Henry with a dagger. After a while, Henry's shield disappeared, and he was sweating profusely. The purple-robed wizard put away the dagger, nodded to the blue-robed wizard and said, 10 times. The blue-robed wizard tapped the table with his finger and said, an ordinary shield, a casting time of more than 10 seconds, and withstand 10 ordinary physical attacks, it will be counted as 70 points. You, go out and wait for the result. Henry bowed and said, thank you, teacher. After going out, his legs felt weak. How is it? Daniel asked after seeing him come out. Henry shook his head, I don't know. But his heart was already cold. After 2 years of hard work, he only got 70 points. However, due to boredom, the students in the hall began to greet each other and chatted about their scores. They found that most of them had 50 points, and there were even many who did not even have 50 points. There were also many people who had single-digit scores. It relieved him a lot. He turned to look at Daniel. His cousin had disappeared down the hall. After Daniel entered the examination room, he felt that the atmosphere was not good, and there was a drowsy atmosphere around him. He looked at the blue-robed wizard who was yawning again and again. He didn't know what to do for a moment, he just stood there blankly. Who are you? The blue-robed wizard suddenly shouted. Ah, I am Daniel Hawkins. Daniel was excited. Why are you here? Come for the exam. What else? And what else? What other information do you have? How old was the magic that awakened, and where did it come from? The blue-robed wizard frowned and said, I dare you to show me this idiot. Oh, I am 20 years old this year, and I just awakened to magic not long ago. I come from Songkei town. Daniel said. Wait, you didn't wake up to magic until you were 20. Daniel nodded. Not only did you awaken your magic when you were 20 years old, but you came here right after you awakened your magic. The blue-robed wizard said with a little anger, although this is a new college, it doesn't mean that we accept everyone. I think there's no need for you to waste our time, just leave now. Daniel smiled and said, you're already here, why don't you take a look? What's there to see? The blue-robed wizard said to the purple-robed wizard, send him away quickly. Just when the purple-robed wizard was about to pull Daniel away, Daniel immediately released a shield. A chill filled the whole room, and the 3 wizards were stunned. Is this an ice shield? Under the instructions of the blue-robed wizard, the purple-robed wizard took out his dagger and attacked in front of the shield as usual. It took a while for the shield to disappear, but Daniel was not sweating or panting, and his expression remained stable, as if his magic power had not been exhausted. How many times? The blue-robed wizard asked. 55, the purple-robed wizard said, and this is the highest record. The purple-robed wizard in charge of recording said softly. The instant ice shield can sustain 55 physical attacks. These 2 points alone are enough to get a high ranking among this bunch of newcomers. At least the top 5 is not a problem. From the way you look, it seems like there's something you haven't put into play yet. The blue-robed wizard's attitude was much better than before. Why did you cancel the ice shield just now? I saw that he was rowing me for a long time, and I was tired. Daniel said. The blue-robed wizard laughed loudly, stood up, and said, "Follow me, you can enter the next test." Under their guidance, Daniel passed through the inner door and came to an open space filled with dummies. "What tricks do you have? Just unleash them on the dummy," the blue-robed wizard said. "If I break them, you won't ask me to pay for it," Daniel said. "Ha ha ha, these are all spells specially cast by the green-robed wizard. If you can really break the dummy, it means that you are better than the green-robed wizard. You don't need to be a student, just become a teacher." "Okay. Okay, stop talking nonsense and let's get started." Soon enough, an ice pick popped out of Daniel's head and hit the dummy. "Well, it seems that you specialize in ice magic," the blue-robed wizard said. "The speed and power of the instant ice cone technique are good. Is there anything else?" Daniel shook his head. Sure enough, it's pretty good for a newcomer, the blue-robed wizard thought, but it doesn't look like he's just awakened his magic power. "Who is your teacher?" "There is no teacher," Daniel said. "I figured it out myself. I can't tell him that I have a system failure." "How is it possible?" The blue-robed wizard smiled. "It doesn't matter if you don't want to say it. In any case, the teacher who taught him must not be simple, and he was very sure that the student in front of him did not drink any alchemical medicine. As long as he drank it, he would be, otherwise I wouldn't be an examiner here." "Okay, you go out and take a rest." The blue-robed wizard smiled. "If you need anything, you can come to me at any time. I am the examiner John Dillon." Daniel said his name again, as if he had gotten to know each other again. Just before he left, John asked again. "By the way, who is that Henry Hawkins to you?" "Oh, he is my brother." John Dillon nodded. "Okay, your brother can come to me if he needs anything. Where have you been?" Henry saw Daniel finally appear. "I'm going to take the exam." Seeing Henry, who looked nervous, Daniel added, "Yeah, by the way, the examiner said you can go to him if you need anything." When Henry heard this, he felt happy, and then felt a little unbelievable. How could it be possible? Chapter 10. Admission. My performance was not particularly outstanding, so how could the examiner treat me so specially? Henry said, "Are you kidding me? Really, the examiner's name is John Dillon. He told me personally. If you don't believe me, ask him." Daniel's original intention was to make Henry relax, but when he saw his expression, he was still suspicious and nervous. "Don't worry, you must be safe. If you don't believe me, I will take you to the examiner." After saying that, he took Henry's hand to leave. Henry shook off his cousin's hand and became a little angry. "Have you had enough fun? Just because you don't have a chance to be on the list doesn't mean I don't have one. You are barefoot and not afraid of wearing shoes, but I am wearing shoes." Daniel shrugged and spread his hands. "Then let's wait for the result together." About 3 hours later, the sun had already set. Those who were due to take the exam had basically finished it. The closer it was to the announcement time, the more nervous they became, and they were still hungry. Everyone did not talk to each other like they did at the beginning of the day, but waited quietly. Daniel felt bored and looked at them from time to time, and found 4 leisurely and contented students gathered together. They seemed not worried about the outcome of this time at all. Seeing that they seemed to be chewing something in their mouths, Daniel pulled Henry towards them. Henry had been nervous for a day and was hungry. His legs were already a little weak. His mind was no longer able to make any decisions. He would go wherever his cousin wanted him to go. "Hello." Daniel greeted directly and generously. They were a little surprised when they saw Daniel coming unexpectedly, and looked at each other without saying a word. "That's right. I see that you are very confident. It seems that you will definitely be on the list." Daniel said, "I don't have anything else to do. I just came here to ask you for advice." After hearing this, each of them looked quite proud. "Hey, in this kind of college entrance exam, it's no problem for us to get in the top 5. A blonde young man said. The other 3 said nothing. "So sure?" Daniel asked. "Of course, we are from Admiralty City." "Ah." As soon as the blonde young man said this, everyone around him looked over and started whispering to each other again. It turns out they are from Admiralty City. No wonder they look so different. Yes, yes, that is the richest city in the Tour territory, and it is also the main city of the Tour family. No wonder they look so confident. Facing the secret praises from everyone, these 4 students couldn't help but raise their chins. It turns out that I'm dealing with some of the most powerful students here. It's really a high level. After saying that, Daniel was about to leave. Wait. The blonde young man was very impressed by Daniel's humble attitude. If Daniel hadn't come here to ask questions, the people around him wouldn't have looked at them with admiration. When we come here, we are all test takers, and there is no such thing as being high or low. By the way, where are you from? Songqi Town. Daniel said. After they heard this, they discussed this place with each other, and after a while they said, "Sorry, I haven't heard of this place. In a remote town, I haven't heard of it being normal." Daniel said. "I'm different from him. I'm from the local Chinexite town." Henry said quickly. Oh, they nodded. "But, since you are so powerful, why don't you just stay in Admiralty City?" Henry asked. After hearing this, the 4 young men lost most of their previous expressions. Seeing Henry's sincere look, it didn't look like he was deliberately looking for trouble, so they began to falter. Seeing this, Daniel hurriedly said, "There is a saying in my hometown that a man should aim everywhere. I believe that your ambitions can be realized here in Chinexite town." After saying that, he glared at his cousin. "Ah, yes, that's it," they said quickly. At this moment, I saw them taking out a dark thing and putting it in their mouths to chew. Daniel felt that the time was almost up and said, "Hey, what are you eating?" "Oh, this is beef jerky. You can try it." Daniel took it and bit into half of it. "Yeah, it tastes really good." Then he handed the other half to Henry and said, "Sorry, I forgot to introduce him. He is my brother." Then he boasted about the beef jerky. "Where did you buy this?" "Oh, you didn't buy this." The blonde boy pointed at a young man with brown hair and said, "His mother made it." "Wow, that's awesome." Daniel praised. "Eat more if you like it." The brown-haired boy stopped hiding it and took out the entire bag of beef jerky for him to help himself. Daniel was naturally rude, but Henry was very embarrassed. After Daniel took a piece and gave it to him, he started eating on his own. Of course, the food should not be too ugly. He chatted with them while eating, interspersed with compliments and exclamations from time to time. "I'm telling you." The blonde boy whispered in Daniel's ear, "Not only is his mother's craftsmanship great, but he is also great. You have to know that he will be the first one this time." "So sure, could it be that his family sent money?" Daniel said. "Hey!" The blonde young man was stunned. "Are you kidding? How could you say such a thing? This is a wizard academy. He got first place because he mastered thunder magic. This is super rare." "Oh, that's why." Daniel stopped when he saw that the beef jerky was almost gone. At this moment, a purple-robed wizard came out and stood on the stage and shouted. Now the selected rankings are announced. Everyone couldn't help but walk towards the stage. The purple-robed wizard cast a spell, and a dense string of names appeared in front of them. 1,000 names, how long will it take to find them? But this was not difficult for Henry Hawkins. He found his name in the last corner. Although he was the last one, he was selected anyway. Selected, ha ha ha. Henry said to Daniel excitedly. "I said you were sure." Daniel said. "Hey, you just guessed. I'm the last one, and you almost didn't guess it right. So do you want me to guess it right or not?" Daniel said, "Since you found your own name, help me find my name." "Do you still need to find your name? It's late. Don't waste time. Let's go." Just when Henry was about to pull his cousin away, he heard the 4 young men from Golden Bell City discussing with each other. "Hey, it's Alan Hawthorne who really deserves to be the first. I'm the 3rd, you're the 4th, he's the 5th, Who's the 2nd? Daniel Hawkins. Who is he?" Henry heard their conversation and looked at the ranking list in disbelief, and found that his cousin's name was on the top. "It's me." Daniel said to them, "Please give me more advice in the future." Chapter 11. The last one. My uncle, aunt, and David had been waiting at the gate of the college. When Daniel and David walked out of the gate, they immediately greeted them, especially my aunt, who said nervously, "How was it? How was the test? What was the result?" My uncle also nervously took out a few pieces of tobacco from his pocket and added them to his pipe, lighting the cigarette to relieve his nervousness. The actual test time was not long, but Henry's mood experienced a roller coaster like ups and downs throughout the day. In addition, he was very hungry, and the piece of dried meat given by his cousin was not enough to fill him up. Therefore, he was now livid, haggard, and dazed, and said nothing. William and Susan felt that the atmosphere was wrong, and they were also stunned. After a while, Susan spoke. "Is it possible, is it possible, is it possible, I didn't pass the exam?" Henry shook his head. William took a deep puff of the cigarette, and Susan's eyes were dull for a while. She didn't know what to think in her mind. She only felt that her legs were getting weaker and weaker. When she was about to fall, William supported his wife's elbow. Susan managed to regain some expression, and forced a smile at Henry, saying, "It's okay, the Wizard Academy is not easy to begin with, we can just take the exam next time, you've worked hard these past 2 years, let's go back and have a good meal." Henry said quickly after hearing this. "No, Mother, you misunderstood, I passed the exam. But I was the last one." "Ha!" William shouted. "You damned bastard, you scared me to death." Susan hit her husband, then hugged Henry and said, "Oh, my good son, you scared me to death. Why do you look so bad? It's good to pass the exam." "I guess he's ashamed of being the last one," Daniel said on the side. After hearing what his cousin said, Henry lowered his head in shame. Susan didn't take it seriously. "Daniel, what do you know? Do you know how difficult it is to get into the Wizard Academy?" I know, just like thousands of troops squeezing on a single plank bridge." Daniel kicked the stone next to him. "Hey, I didn't expect you to be good at using metaphors." Susan said, "Yin and yang, you should think about how to face your father Rob when you go back. I guess he has prepared his fists to entertain you." "Hee, I'm really scared." Daniel said, "You must help me stop my father when the time comes. I'm afraid he can't stand it in the end." "Are you afraid of making him angry to death?" Susan smiled and said, Okay, I will help you stop him when the time comes." What a filial child! On the way back, Henry didn't say a word. William and Susan just thought that Henry was unhappy because he got the last place. They comforted Henry for a long time, but Henry still had a cold face and didn't say a word, so they let him do it. Seeing his son's current state, William boasted, "My son is really ambitious and is unwilling to be the last place." Susan couldn't hide her happiness. She chattered all the way and teased Daniel from time to time. Daniel also made the young aunt happy like a supporting role. For a moment, Susan felt that Daniel was not so annoying. "Don't worry, if your father really attacks you, I will definitely speak for you." Today is a good day, Susan decided to be generous and treat them to dinner tonight, and a big meal with meat. Rob's face flushed, he pursed his lips when he sat down, and said nothing, and paced back and forth when he stood up. Emma Hawkins looked at her husband's current state and couldn't help but get scared. After all, they have been married for 20 years. She knows Rob too well. If he really attacks Daniel at this moment, Daniel's body will probably be bruised again, and his face will definitely be swollen. Alas, she also thought that she really didn't understand why Daniel would argue with his father at this juncture. Rob's anger is accumulated, not to mention that Daniel seemed to have completely changed after returning from Sonk Forest, and he opposed him everywhere. Humph, thinking that you can be superior to me with a little money, he knew that Daniel must have found some money in the forest, but this money was just luck after all. Daniel himself had no ability, and this money was destined to be not much. Therefore, this family still depends on him, Rob Hawkins himself. Daniel should have gone out with him to find a job today, but now Daniel went out to play for a day, wasting a day. There was another thing that made Rob Hawkins very angry, that is, he ran around outside for a day, but didn't find a job. All kinds of anger came together, and he was going to vent all on Daniel tonight. "They are back." Rob Hawkins heard the movement at the door, and immediately rushed out the door, looking at Daniel and his group. Emma Hawkins also hurried to catch up, ready to pull her husband at any time. "Hello." Daniel smiled. "Brother, let's talk it over," William said. "Yes, if you have something to say, please talk." Susan's voice softened when she saw the oppressive Rob Hawkins. She thought, my nephew, it seems that apart from praying to the ancient gods for you, you can do whatever you want. Where did you go today? Rob said slowly with a higher tone. The slower he spoke, the more oppressive he was. Oh, let me think. Daniel pretended to touch his chin and thought, I went to the city center. What did you do in the city center? Susan said quickly, it's nothing. I think it's their first time here, and Henry has to take an exam, so I thought of taking the two brothers to the city center to see the world and give Henry some courage. Daniel, you say no. Of course not. Daniel said, the ancient God's scriptures teach us to be honest. Dear father, the fact is this. I got into the Wizard Academy. What? Say it again? You sneaked into the Wizarding Academy. Rob's angry voice had a hint of panic. What are you doing sneaking in as a person without magic? Do you know the consequences? Have they discovered you? Found it? Daniel said. Ah. Except for William's family and Daniel himself, Rob and others were so frightened that their faces turned pale. At this moment, Rob couldn't control much anymore. His anger level was full. He stretched out a slap and slapped Daniel while cursing. You bastard, do you know what trouble you've caused? Rob was a knight before, but he was also well aware of the severity of punishments at the Wizarding Academy, ranging from paying compensation to being imprisoned, and even losing his life. Although the punishment for Daniel without magic was at most compensation, they were in a tight situation right now. Even if Daniel hit a small vault, it didn't mean he could offend the wizards. Ah! Emma screamed, and Susan hid behind William. Just when Rob was about to hit Daniel, he suddenly felt a cold feeling in his palm, and then his right hand was bounced away, and his entire right arm rotated and bounced outwards while driving his body. Ah, this time it was Rob who called out. Chapter 12. Dislocation. This scene was unexpected by everyone present. Emma covered her mouth, Susan's eyes widened, William was stunned for a long time while holding the pipe, and David's mouth rounded in fright. Only Henry Hawkins acted the most normal and even sneered, but no one paid attention to him at the moment. What's going on? Rob stood up with difficulty. Good guy, his shoulder was dislocated. He looked at Daniel and was shocked. Is that an ice shield? Hey, dear father, you really know your stuff. Daniel walked up to Rob, looked at his dislocated shoulder, and couldn't help but shake his head. Tisk, 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 if I don't know how to use ice shield, if I really get hit by you like this, my head will move. Do you know that the harder you use, the more damage you will receive in the magic shield? The greater the rebound, unless you are strong enough to break my shield. However, to Daniel's surprise, he could no longer see any angry look on his father's face, replaced by a soft gaze. Could it be that he changed his attitude towards him when he learned that he became a wizard? Bah, a bunch of guys who look down on others. Although Daniel was used to seeing people like this in Blue Star, he was still very resistant to such people in his heart. When did you learn magic? Rob asked, holding his shoulders. Well, we just met, Daniel said. Liar, you lied, how could it be possible? This time it was Henry Hawkins' turn to get angry. If you had just awakened the magic, how could you have ice shield, how could you have ranked second in the entrance exam? Ah, another big news came, and everyone was a little at a loss after hearing it. You really took second place? Rob asked, with uncontrollable excitement in his tone. Second? Susan murmured, second. I can go to key classes. Unexpectedly, Henry, whom she had always been proud of, was just a scumbag in front of Daniel. Hey! Rob Hawkins, you hide it so deeply. Yes, I got second place. I am now an official student of Dawn Wizard Academy. Daniel turned to Henry and said, now you know why I know that the examiner is named John Dillon. Do you know why I kept telling you that you were doing well this time? Because John Dillon took the initiative to ask me about you at the end of the song. Henry Hawkins' face turned red and white. He didn't know whether he was ashamed or angry, or he didn't dare to admit it. How long have you been learning magic, and who did you study under before? I won't be able to come back for another year, and I have to rely on myself. Pass the test based on your strength. After hearing this, William and Susan cursed. Henry, what are you talking about? If we take the exam for another year, we won't have to pay off our debt. Do you really think that we are rich and can support you in your studies? Then Susan walked up to Daniel, held his hand and smiled. Oh, Daniel, I knew you were unusual and generous from the first time I saw you. It's all Henry's fault for being unmotivated. What did he say about you? Don't worry, he is still young and immature, and I will ask you to take good care of your brother from now on. Let's have dinner together tonight. Let's have a sumptuous meal. If there's anything you want to eat in particular, tell Auntie and I'll cook it for you. Oh, Rob, Emma, you are really blessed by the ancient gods. You must thank the ancient gods for having such a well-developed son. Henry Hawkins was stunned when faced with his mother's series of words. He promised that I would be your best son. Aunt Susan was right. The meal tonight was indeed sumptuous, including grilled fish, grilled chicken, and fried bacon. But Daniel's favorite was baked mashed potatoes, paired with rye beer. This was the most sumptuous meal he had eaten since time travel. Everyone enjoyed the meal except Henry Hawkins. Daniel suddenly thought of something and stood far away. Everyone looked at him curiously. I saw Daniel release an ice shield. After a few seconds, he retracted the shield and drank the beer in his hand. A cool feeling hit his heart and spleen. He drank the cold beer in big gulps and finally let out a big belch. Cool. Everyone laughed, and Rob and William held up the beer and handed it to Daniel, saying that they also wanted cold beer. Daniel glanced at Rob and felt that he was in a good mood, told them to retreat, and then repeated the action just now. Rob and William drank cold beer for the first time, and it tasted even better. Brother, Daniel is not only talented in magic, but also has a quick mind. I really envy you. William said. Rob couldn't bear the compliment, so he just laughed and got carried away. By the way, you really don't need to see a witch doctor to look at your arm. William said. No, I have a stubborn disease on the battlefield. It's easy to dislocate, but it's also easy to put it back on. After saying that, Robert shook his right arm freely to prove that he was fine. At this time, Daniel thought that for those living in the slums, they would only eat such a meal once a year. Thinking of this, Daniel Hawkins took out 2 silver coins from his pocket and handed them to his aunt. Susan quickly pushed his hand back. No, 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 we have agreed to treat this meal. You have already treated me once before. I will need more care from you in the future. Not only that, Daniel also heard a hint of apology in Susan's tone. Indeed, Susan regretted why she didn't treat them better before. Now she can only try to make up for it. The next step is to enroll in school. Money is needed everywhere, and the tuition alone is not cheap. Yes, tuition, this was something Daniel didn't expect. How much is the tuition? Susan had a smile on her face. I don't know about the key classes, but Henry will pay 15 gold a year. Hiss. Daniel couldn't help but gasped. For key classes, according to his experience, there would only be more, not less. Susan continued, if you have financial problems, there is nothing I can do to help you as an aunt. We also borrowed money for Henry's tuition. But you can first return the house you are renting and stay with us. Although it's not much, it can at least save some money on rent. Facing his relatives whose attitude had completely changed, Daniel no longer felt the disgust he felt before. After all, this is human nature. And now he has realized something deeply, when you become stronger, the people around you become better. Son, you don't have to worry about money. Rob patted Daniel on the shoulder. Now, let's drink beer, eat barbecue, and enjoy tonight. This is a world of strong men, and you deserve this. After speaking, he took out a bag of money and stuffed it into Daniel's hand. This money was originally reserved for David, but now you need it more. I will find a way for David in the future. Chapter 13. How to relieve worries. After Daniel took the money bag and was about to open it, Rob stopped him and said, open it again after you get home. Although you are more capable than me of keeping the money now, you always remember that wealth should not be exposed. Hey, you dare to treat us as outsiders. William joked. I'm sorry, my brother. Of course I believe you, but this is a slum. We make so much noise in the house. How do we know if there are thieves or beggars peeking outside the window? Rob looked out the window and said with a smile, look, who's that half head belongs to? As soon as these words came out, the head immediately shrank down. Ha ha ha, William said, what you said makes sense. Henry, these are great wisdoms. Please listen to your uncle's advice more in the future. Do you understand? Henry Hawkins curled his lips. Fortunately he was an adult, fortunately he didn't care about anything, and drank a lot of beer. Ah, he wants to drink cold beer too. Daniel toyed with the bag of money. If it was all copper coins, it would be better not to give it. If it was all silver coins, it would only be about 20 or 30 coins, which was far from enough for him, but seeing his father Roberts with a serious expression, there must be at least 20 pieces of gold scattered in this bag of money. I just don't know how the key classes are charged. Daniel returned to his bedroom and finally had some quiet time alone. He immediately closed the curtains and poured out the bag of coins. Sure enough, they were all gold coins. He counted them, no more, no less, exactly 30 coins. Then including his own, the total was 35 coins. A feeling of getting rich arises spontaneously. Unexpectedly, the old Hawkins had a hidden skill. After putting away the coins, he lay on the bed, still thinking about the food cooked by his aunt. I have to say that although she is a bit snobbish, her craftsmanship is better than that of his mother Emma. So much better. Even if there are no meat dishes, his cooking skills are far superior to his mother's. He decided that he would go to his aunt's house to eat when he got the chance. Since he had been running outside all day, plus eating and drinking, his eyes were starting to feel sleepy, which was great. After all, he barely had a good sleep after traveling through time. After killing the ogres and returning home from Sonk Forest, he traveled all the way to downtown for several days. However, there is one thing to say, it feels really uncomfortable without a mobile phone. He was lying on the bed, drowsy, and planned to click on the system interface to take a look before going to sleep. Ice Shield LV1 can be upgraded. Ice Cone Technique LV1 can be upgraded. When Daniel saw the words upgradable, he immediately sat up from the bed. I was no longer sleepy at this point. He quickly clicked on the first shield upgrade, and the interface popped up. It costs 10 gold spreads to upgrade Ice Shield to LV2. Whether to upgrade? Damn, this costs 10 gold coins. Don't call it a copy system, call it a Krypton gold system, Daniel complained. It seems that being a wizard in this world is not enough, you must also be a wizard who can make money. Forget it, let's not upgrade now. After all, he still doesn't know how much the so-called key class tuition is. After turning off the system, I went straight to sleep. Alex Muller is the principal of Dawn Wizard Academy. The red robe on his body symbolizes his status, because he is the only one in the entire academy who is qualified to wear red robes. He looked at the admission list, his eyes fixed on the top 5 students, frowning and curling his lips, scratching the half-bald Mediterranean from time to time. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Please come in. I saw a blue-robed wizard come in, put his right hand on his left shoulder facing the Mediterranean Sea, bowed slightly and saluted. Principal Mueller. Alex Muller nodded, handed the admission list to him and said, Mr. Dillon, tell me what's going on. Bob Dillon took the list and looked at it for a while. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it, so he looked at the principal with a puzzled look. You are still pretending to be stupid, the principal suddenly slapped the table and said, I told you during the meeting, and I even specifically told you that the top 4 places are fixed. Bob Dillon nodded, Principal Mueller, the top 4 students you mentioned before are indeed outstanding, especially the first place, Alan Hawthorne, who is simply what everyone expected. As for the remaining 3, in front of the second Daniel Hawkins, he is very inferior. He told the principal everything about Daniel Hawkins' performance in the exam, and finally concluded. So there's absolutely no reason for me not to take Hawkins' no too. Alex Muller nodded and said, I understand, but do you know the identities of those 4 students? Their parents are earls from various places, which means that they are all children of nobles. With noble status, the establishment of Dawn Academy is inseparable from the support of the local earls, and their parents are the most supportive. Oh, what then? John Dillon said. What these nobles need most is face. I promised their parents to specially commend them during the entrance ceremony, give them honors as freshmen, and exempt them from tuition fees. Alex Muller knocked on the table as he spoke. Oh, that's it. John Dillon said. Yes. Principal Mueller scolded, then what do you think we should do now? His original intention was to have John Dillon publicly apologize, say his fault, and then openly disqualify the second place, even if the second place was moved to the 5th place, so that the honor and tuition fees would be equal to Daniel's. Hawkins has nothing to do with it, Principal Mueller, it's actually very simple. John Dillon said, if you really want to reward those 4 students, you might as well reward one more and just reward the top 5. Wow, you are really a genius. Alex Mueller applauded, go ahead and go ahead. You have nothing to do here. Also, you don't want to be the examiner in the future. Then what do I do? John Dillon asked. I will directly upgrade your blue robe to green robe, and you can go directly to become a teacher. Alex Mueller said. Ah. Dear Principal Mueller, John Dillon saluted again, I am flattered that you promoted me, but I'm afraid I can only refuse. Why? Alex was stunned. Who dared to refuse promotion? I just feel that I'm not capable enough and I haven't reached the level of a teacher yet. I feel at ease being the examiner of new students. If it's not something I feel at ease with, I will never do it, and the ancient gods will not forgive me. After hearing this, Alex Mueller held his forehead and wondered how such a shabby subordinate could be found. If John Dillon hadn't been a nobleman, he would have fired him long ago. So after thinking for a while, he said. A teacher will resign next. I don't have enough staff right now. I hope you can take over. Is this an acceptable reason? Ah, if that's the case, I'd be honored to relieve Principal Mueller. Chapter 14. Tuition Fee Reduction. In the end, Principal Mueller could only make an exception and allow 5 students to receive freshman honors. Freshman honors were nothing. To him, the cost was just a scroll. However, the tuition fee reduction for a commoner for no reason felt strange to him. Looking at Daniel Hawkins' name on the list, he couldn't help but feel a sense of disgust. Moreover, this Daniel Hawkins is already 20 years old. He is considered older among the new students. He has awakened his magic so late. Well, his talent is just that. He closed the list and thought that he could give him relief this year and wait until next year to find a reason to cancel Daniel's relief. On the first day of school, Daniel wanted to ask Henry to go to the academy with him, but Henry refused. It has been a week since the exam, and his cousin Henry Hawkins has not yet faced the reality. During this time, Henry has locked himself in his room, barely leaving the door or taking a step out. He couldn't believe that his admission was a backdoor provided by his cousin. He despised such a backdoor. Such a backdoor was equivalent to denying all his efforts in the past 2 years, so whenever he saw his cousin coming, he would either put on a bad face, or hurriedly grab 2 pieces of bread and slam the door back to his room. Faced with Henry's attitude towards Daniel, the aunt felt a little embarrassed at first and would say some comforting words to Daniel. But after 2 days, she saw Daniel's indifferent attitude, so she didn't care anymore. Of course Daniel didn't care. He still went to his aunt's house every day to get food. His food and sleep had improved greatly in this week. Of course, his time was not in vain. In addition to praising his aunt's cooking skills until she was delighted, he would also buy some bread and meat from time to time. Later, he found it troublesome, so he directly discussed with his aunt, and agreed to give her 10 silver coins a month, and she would be responsible for the food for him and David. Aunt Susan quickly shied away, whatever money you give, it's all from my family. We all live so close. If you want to eat in the future, just let us know in advance. To be polite, Daniel still knew how difficult it was for his uncle and aunt. The way he did it would sooner or later empty out Uncle William's family. Therefore, he insisted on giving the money. Auntie, if you don't accept it, I won't come to eat in the future. Henry Hawkins looked happy after hearing this. Susan couldn't resist her nephew, so she reluctantly accepted the money, praising him for being sensible while accepting it. Brother, will this hurt my mother too much? David Hawkins said. Daniel thought for a while, nodded and said, what you said makes sense, brother, you should be filial. In this way, from now on, I will go to my aunt's house to eat, and you will eat at home with your mother. No. David said. After Daniel Hawkins received a grey robe and a wand at the gate of the castle, he followed the instructions of the purple-robed wizard and entered the hall to wait. The hall is still the same as before, but there are not as many people as there were during the exam, or the expansion spell has not dissipated yet. In short, the space is much emptier, and the air is better than before. Daniel scanned the hall and did not find Henry Hawkins, which was a pity, otherwise he could have amused his cousin. The waiting time was boring and long. Bored, he took out the wand issued by the academy and looked at it. The workmanship of this wand is rough, it's like taking a random branch from a tree and whittling it off a few times, then simply enchanting it and that's it. Even though it's a wizarding academy in town, at least it should be given a decent wand. He put the wand on the ground and then held it in his hand. He felt that the magic power had increased slightly, which was better than nothing. You actually left such a precious wand on the ground. He turned around and found a dissatisfied Henry Hawkins. Hey, brother, here we come. I don't see any respect for magic in you. Henry scolded. Do you know how much this wand will cost if you want to buy it? How much? Daniel looked curious. A full gold spread. How many? 1 gold spread. Henry lowered his voice, but his tone became more serious. You need to pay 1 gold for such a useless thing. Daniel couldn't help but said loudly. Hush, the principal is right in front. Unfortunately, Principal Mueller heard this, and his cheeks twitched, but today is a good day for admission, so for the sake of the overall situation, he had to endure it. As a principal, there is no need to have trouble with a student, especially a civilian student. Everyone was here, and at the request of the purple-robed wizard, everyone put on their grey robes and approached the podium. Under the influence of the echo spell, Principal Mueller's voice was equivalent to turning on a microphone. Good morning, classmates. Congratulations. From now on, you will officially become wizards at Dawn Wizard Academy. I hope that in the next few years, you will study hard, study spells, and strive to graduate smoothly and become wizards in the true sense. Others I won't say too much. Principal Mueller pointed to the wizard in green robe beside him and said, his name is Richard Pullen. He is your teacher and our Minister of Finance. Later, under the leadership of the wizard in purple robe, you will go his office pays the tuition fee. The top 5 freshmen who enroll this time will receive the Freshman Honor Award, and will be awarded an honor scroll and a tuition exemption. What? Tuition fee exemption? Daniel became restless. This is a huge good thing. Henry looked at his cousin with disdain, hoping to find out that his cousin cheated by drinking alchemy medicine. Young wizards whose names have been read, please come on stage. First place, Alan Hawthorne. Second place, Daniel Hawkins. Third place, Luca Rossi. Fourth place, Anthony Miller. Fifth place, George Malone. After Daniel Hawkins and others came on stage, there was a burst of applause and envious expressions from the audience. But at this moment, Daniel's mind was full of tuition reduction. It seemed that he could have another big meal tonight. At the end, Principal Mueller seemed to have thought of something and finally reminded, you must keep your wands well. This is a benefit given to you by the Academy. If you lose or break it, you can buy it from Teacher Richard Plan for 1 gold. You know, this wand costs at least 2 golds to buy outside. Daniel Hawkins listened to the principal's words and thought about it, but at the moment, he was thinking about what to eat in the evening. Henry Hawkins found his cousin's dull expression very funny, thinking, see, the principal has spoken, let's see if you dare to throw your wand around in the future. On the stage, it was not only Principal Mueller who looked at Daniel strangely, but also the 4 noble young men standing beside him. They no longer had the friendly attitude towards Daniel during the exam a week ago, and now they were more of a contempt. Chapter 15. Magic Blank Spot. Humph, who dares to compare with us? Luca Rossi said. Hey, I see you had a pleasant chat with him before. George Malone asked, maybe he knocked you down from 2nd place and you are not convinced. What do you know? The friendly exchanges between nobles and civilians means that the nobles are humble and courteous to the corporal, but it does not mean that the civilians can be on an equal footing with the nobles. Luca Rossi waved his hand and said, and these rankings are nothing, if there is an identity and we are the same, even if I am a knight with the lowest title, I have nothing to say. Now that a commoner is stepping on my head, I really lose the face of the Rossi family. He just got lucky. Alan Hawthorne said, there are only 5 of us in the key class now. As long as I am here, this Daniel Hawkins cannot last long. Even if he doesn't leave in the end, I can guarantee his life will not be easy. Luca Rossi clapped his hands and said, Alan is right. Now I feel like the air around me has become turbid even when I stand with him. Ha ha ha. George Malone and Anthony Miller echoed. Besides, I really don't understand why our king requires the Wizarding Academy to be open to civilians. It's just random. Luca Rossi said. Don't talk nonsense, be careful with your mouth. Alan Hawthorne warned. Luca Rossi quickly covered his mouth. There were only 5 of them in the empty classroom. As soon as Daniel Hawkins saw them, he greeted them warmly. He wanted to continue chatting with them through the beef jerky incident last time. After all, we were all classmates in the future and were familiar with each other. It's always a good thing. Just as he was about to speak, he felt that they were hostile to him. After all, he had been in the workplace for so long before traveling through time, so he still had some discernment, so he gave up and found a place to rest quietly. "Hey, this is not your seat," Luca Rossi said. Daniel looked around the seat. "What, is this the teacher's exclusive seat?" "Damn, stop pretending to be stupid," Luca Rossi said. "You stinky commoner, you stink so much, go sit in the corner." "I didn't expect that I would encounter campus bullying even after traveling through time. How can I tolerate it?" Daniel Hawkins stretched his head over, sniffed around them and said, "Wow, you are worthy of being a noble. You guys taste so good. I wonder what you taste like." "What?" The four nobles were stunned. "Ah, don't you know? Poor people like us who come from remote areas will eat everything when there is a famine. There is no other way, people have to survive," Daniel said leisurely. What you said is true," Anthony Miller said timidly and couldn't help but take a step back. "Alas, poor places bring out unruly people," Daniel Hawkins said. "I advise you to stay away from me, otherwise I'm afraid I will bite you if I can't help it. Like a vampire." George Malone also took a step back. "What are you afraid of? It's embarrassing." Alan Hawthorne was angry, pointed at Daniel's nose and said, "You, get to the back of me now, and you are not allowed to come to the front without my order in the future." "What if I just don't?" Daniel raised his feet on the table and said leisurely with his head in his hands. Alan Hawthorne's attitude towards Daniel was both confusing and angry. "Why is he not afraid of me? He is just a commoner, and our fathers are both earls." Then, Alan Hawthorne spread his hands, and a golden thunder and lightning flashed from his palms. Daniel immediately sat up, quickly made an ice shield and said, "Wow, what kind of magic do you have? Why did you create a yellow earthworm running around?" "The purpose is very clear, which is to deliberately provoke Alan to attack him, so that he can copy the other party's magic, and he can feel that although the other party's magic is very strong, he can also feel that it is within his own tolerance." "You idiot, this is the rarest thunder magic, the magic of the ancient gods," Alan said angrily. Just when he was about to release the magic, he heard a burst of curses coming from the door. "What are you doing?" They all looked around and saw a green-robed wizard pointing at them with an angry expression. "It's nothing, we are just exchanging magic." Alan put down his hand and looked at Daniel. "Really?" the green-robed wizard asked Daniel. "Yes, we are just competing." Daniel also put away the shield, feeling a pity in his heart, otherwise he could activate another spell. And the reason why he echoed Alan's words was not because he was afraid of him, but because he knew that students' problems could only be solved between students. The teacher can intervene for a while, but not for a lifetime. "That's good. You should be very clear about the rules of the Wizard Academy. Anyone who uses magic to fight without permission will be expelled," the green-robed wizard said. "When the time comes, I don't care whose son you are." "Teacher," Daniel raised his hand. The green-robed wizard looked at him doubtfully. "What's the matter? Is it okay if the fight doesn't involve magic, but only fists and kicks?" Daniel asked. "Green-robed wizard." Alan and others looked at each other. "This bastard is a lunatic." "Stop talking nonsense," the green-robed wizard said. "Let's go to class now." "Are you, the examiner John Dillon?" Daniel recognized him. "Yes." John nodded. "Aren't you in the blue robe?" Alan said. "Why are you in the green robe now?" "Your principal Mueller said that there are not enough green robes, so I stepped up." "Tisk, we are a key class, how can we let a wizard who has just been promoted to the green robe teach us?" Alan questioned. "At least the yellow robe should teach us, at least the green robe." Faced with Alan's questioning, John Dillon was not angry or annoyed, and said solemnly, "I am more than enough to teach you." "Really? I don't believe it." Daniel blurted out, and he regretted it as soon as he said it. He only blamed himself for browsing the forum for too long in his previous life, and many languages entered his subconscious. Fortunately, John Dillon was not annoyed. "I understand your doubts, don't worry, if you find that I am not qualified to be your teacher, you can complain to me at any time. Now, please line up, I want to test your spells, and first find the magic blank point between you." "Magic blank point, what is this?" it is another new term. Daniel lined up with questions. Of course, he was squeezed to the last one. He shook his head helplessly. Forget it. The teacher is here. He won't bother with these idiots who look down on others. He will deal with them later. Chapter 16, Flotation. What is the magic blank spot? Daniel couldn't help asking. The other 4 classmates turned to look at him like a fool. You don't even know this. Luca Rossi said, civilians are civilians. Daniel was really tired of them always talking about status. You know, you are great, you are noble. You. Luca felt strange. It was clear that the other party was praising him, but the tone made him uncomfortable. Okay, now you all calm down. John Dillon cleared his throat. Let me explain briefly. Before you enter school, you have to go through a certain amount of practice in order to pass the entrance exam. Everyone practices magic differently. In order to make it easier for new students to teach, first find your common magic blanks, that is, the magic that you have not yet mastered, and then teach together. When you have reached a certain level of cultivation, other teachers will naturally provide you with special training. Okay, let's start now. John Dillon was placed on both sides of George Malone. As he murmured a mantra, a burst of white light emitted from his palms. After a while, he said, next. Just like that, after each of their heads was illuminated by white light, John Dillon said. 1 thunder spell, 1 earth spell, and 3 ice spells. After hearing this, Alan and Luca couldn't help but get excited. Luca even said, although the earth element is not as rare as the thunder element, it is at least much better than the bad ice magic on the street. Why do you talk so much? Daniel said. Okay, everyone, be quiet. John Dillon said, you have all learned attack and shield magic before. It seems that your common magic point is practical magic, which is what I said. Material. What is practical magic? Daniel said. Why do you have so many questions? Luca said. John Dillon was too lazy to pay attention to them and said directly, in the first lesson, I will teach you the levitation technique. Follow me. Castle backyard. Daniel and the other 5 stood in a row, as if they were back in physical education class. The levitation technique is actually very simple. It's just like Daniel's ice cone technique. It's instant. I'll demonstrate it again. Alan Hawthorne was dissatisfied. My thunder method is also instantaneous. Why don't I give you an example? I saw John Dillon snap his fingers, and the whole person floated up, nearly 2 meters away from the ground. You see, this is the levitation technique. If you learn it, you can float on the water and even fall from high places. No problem, it will slow down your fall. Daniel thought to himself, this is the equivalent of a parachute. Snapping your fingers is equivalent to opening an umbrella. Of course, you don't have to snap your fingers. It's not necessary. John Dillon said. Damn, if it weren't for a coincidence, Daniel would have doubted whether the green-robed wizard in front of him could read minds. The theoretical trick is also very simple. It is to sense the flow of magic in your body, concentrate, and imagine that you are floating upward. John Dillon said, also, you should do more meditation training, which will help you master the skills in the future. Magic is more helpful. Let's start now. Whoever masters it first will be rewarded. What reward? Luca Rossi asked excitedly. Wait until you master it. John Dillon said, the standard is half a meter above the ground, even if you pass. In the same way, with rewards comes punishment. I will give you a week. If you have not mastered it after a week, I will punish you. Go to the alchemy department to help plant anemones for a week. Alan Hawthorne originally thought that such a simple spell would take a week, but when he put it into practice, he found that it was really difficult. Not to mention the others, they were all standing there, the sun was almost setting, and none of them could succeed, let alone half a meter above the ground, not even half a centimeter. Anthony Miller and George Malone jumped on the ground from time to time, trying to stay in the air and not fall down every time they jumped. John Dillon looked at the 2 of them and smiled, the more you act like this, the harder it will be to succeed. Because you can't concentrate at all. Daniel, have you practiced? I see you have been sitting on the stone bench for a day. Well, I practiced. Daniel Hawkins opened his eyes slightly and said, didn't you say that meditation training is useful? I'm meditating to find a feeling. You're talking nonsense. You're clearly sleeping. John Dillon frowned and said, "Don't think I don't know. I can feel the magic of all of you. Only your magic is still." Everyone looked at Daniel with gloating expressions. Alan Hawthorne said, "Daniel, do you think the key class is fun? Teacher Dillon, why don't you let him leave the key class? He doesn't deserve to be here." Yet. Luca Rossi and others also echoed. "Daniel, you came in second place, and you are also the oldest among so many people. I hope you can cherish the opportunity to be in the key class. The key class does not mean that you will be settled once and for all as soon as you enter." Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, Daniel Hawkins stretched out, yawned widely and said, "Teacher Dillon, don't worry, I will not be eliminated even if others are eliminated in the key class." Seeing his shaky look, Alan Hawthorne couldn't help but think about whether he would have to drop out of school if he hit someone with his fist. He really wanted to punch Daniel now. However, after the teacher's reminder, they resumed training. "Teacher Dillon, if we try to float small objects as training first, will it be much easier?" Alan Hawthorne said. John Dillon nodded. "Alan is good, you are the first to ask questions. It seems that you are not only the first because you have thunder element. You all learn from Alan. As a wizard, you must learn to think." Faced with the teacher's praise, Alan was quite pleased and complacent. However, making objects float, no matter how small the object is not easier than making yourself float. John Dillon said, "Because to make objects float, you not only have to concentrate the magic in your body, but also guide the magic into the objects outside your body. Therefore, making yourself float is the easiest." Alan Hawthorne and others nodded, and just when they closed their eyes to continue training, they heard Daniel shouting, "Teacher Dillon, then is it the most difficult to make another person float?" Everyone looked over and thought Daniel was very annoying. Even John Dillon thought Daniel was talking nonsense. This was the stupidest question. The bigger the object, the harder it is. John Dillon still answered seriously. "Can I feel it?" Daniel said, "Teacher, can you let me float once?" "What's going on?" John Dillon looked at Daniel, who looked serious. Isn't this guy just a fool or a madman? If he wasn't a madman, how could he be so bold to ask a green-robed wizard for this? Chapter 17. Past. "Actually, letting you float won't help you practice levitation," John Dillon said dissatisfiedly. "Instead of thinking about these, you might as well think about training. If it doesn't work, you can continue to meditate." "Teacher, just let me float for a try," Daniel begged. "Okay, stop it," John Dillon said. "You guys hurry up and practice for a while, school will be over soon. Remember to rest when you get home, don't practice too much is as bad as too little." Daniel saw that Teacher Dillon ignored him, so he simply said directly, "Can't you make someone float?" "What did you say?" John Dillon looked at Daniel in disbelief, and couldn't help but think of what Principal Mueller said. Is it really wrong to let civilians enter the key class? Is identity really one of the dimensions of judgment? Just because he is so rude, I shouldn't rank him second. This student is really too rude. Alan Hawthorne and others didn't practice anymore, waiting to watch the show. Luca Rossi added fuel to the fire and said, "Teacher Dillon, Daniel provoked you. What would you do if I could make you float?" John Dillon's tone became heavier. I guess it would help me master the levitation technique faster," Daniel Hawkins said. "How fast?" John Dillon pressed on. "Okay, I'll cast a spell to make you float once, and you have to get first place in this levitation learning." Daniel Hawkins said, "What if you don't get first place? Then you get out of the key class, or even out of the Wizard Academy," John Dillon said. "Great!" Alan and others applauded and cheered. "Teacher is wise." Daniel Hawkins deliberately looked embarrassed. "What? Don't you dare!" John Dillon saw his expression and was quite satisfied. He didn't really want to drive him away, but facing such a student who didn't know what he was talking about, he had to give him a warning. Alan Hawthorne was afraid that Daniel would not accept it, so he quickly said, "If you don't accept it, you will be a coward in the future. You should hide in the corner in the next few days of class." "Coward, coward, coward." The four people clapped their hands and shouted rhythmically. "My father is right. Civilians are civilians, and civilians are cowards," Luca Rossi said. However, what surprised John Dillon was that Daniel Hawkins was not angry or annoyed in the face of their humiliation and provocation. His face was calm. He couldn't help but praise him for his strong psychological quality. If he really went to the battlefield in the future, a calm mind is indeed one of the most important qualities of a wizard. Okay, I agree. Daniel Hawkins tried to pretend to be reluctant and gritted his teeth. Oh. I'll give you one more chance. Do you really want to take this bet? Yes, stop talking nonsense. School will be over soon. Daniel Hawkins said, a gentleman's word is as good as his words. Teacher, let's start. You said it. After that, John Dillon released the levitation spell to Daniel. In less than 2 seconds, Daniel really floated up. It must be said that Daniel was amazed at the magic. This was the first time he floated up. He said excitedly, Teacher, can you go higher? John Dillon's hand was always towards Daniel. He thought, this silly boy actually wants to go higher. Doesn't he know how heavy he is? It's good enough if he can hold on for a while longer. Just when he was about to put Daniel down, he heard Alan Hawthorne praising him. Wow, Teacher Dillon is really amazing. I know this levitation technique. If you want to make a person float, you need superb magic control. The higher the levitation and the longer it lasts, the more powerful it is. The most powerful one I have seen can make a person float to 2 meters and last for 1 minute. Faced with this remark, John Dillon forcibly raised Daniel from half a meter to 2 meters, and kept it for 2 minutes before slowly letting him down. After putting him down, he was sweating profusely at this moment, trying hard not to breathe heavily, thinking, this brat, he made me so tired before getting off work. However, John Dillon, the newly promoted Green Robe Wizard, has increased his weight in the hearts of Alan and others. After landing, Daniel quickly opened the system. Floating technique detected, please ask the host whether to copy. Activate. Yes. Floating technique has been activated. Daniel found that there is no level division in floating technique, but floating technique has been learned. Luca Rossi nudged Alan Hawthorne with his elbow and said, it's your job now. You have to take first place. Alan Hawthorne smiled and said, don't always count on me. You have to work hard to take first place. Don't be ridiculous. If you can't take first place, who else can take first place? Luca Rossi said. Haha, I've roughly found the feeling. I estimate that within 3 days, I can master the levitation technique. Alan Hawthorne said confidently. You are worthy of being from the Hawthorne family. Luca Rossi then shouted to Daniel, get ready to pack your bedding. Teacher, I already know how to levitate. Daniel Hawkins said with a smile. Everyone looked at Daniel. Is this guy kidding? After being surprised for a while, Luca Rossi reacted and said, you are bragging. How is it possible? If you fly now, I will eat your stinky socks. Ha ha ha. Daniel pointed at him and said, what if you don't eat it? Then I will allow you to call me a coward for a year. What if you can't fly? I will eat your stinky socks too, and I will never come to the Wizard Academy again from tomorrow. Daniel said. Alan Hawthorne quickly stopped Luca Rossi. He found that although Daniel was smiling, his tone was very confident. He had a bad feeling. But he still didn't believe it, because the objective facts were there, and Teacher Dillon said that he would practice for a week, which must have been judged after years of teaching experience. In addition, he didn't believe that there was anyone in the Dawn Wizard Academy who could be more talented in magic than him. He was already so difficult, let alone a mere ice wizard who was everywhere. The reason why ice magic was everywhere was that the talent threshold was small, so everyone could master it. Daniel, jumping up doesn't count. John Dillon said, enough of the trouble, you should intensify your practice, They looked at Daniel and slowly raised their heads. Daniel Hawkins was already floating, not half a meter, not 1 meter, but 2 meters. It's a pity that it can't go any higher. Daniel said, but, Mr. Dillon, is this considered qualified? John Dillon opened his mouth for a long time, and after a while he said, considered qualified. Chapter 18. Teleportation. Daniel Hawkins not only floated up, but also floated freely around, occasionally passing over Luca Rossi's head, and every time he passed over, he shouted, socks are still cowards, this is a problem. Luca Rossi's face was pale, and he froze in place and couldn't move. Although Alan Hawthorne didn't participate in the sock-eating activity, he was not much better, and his face was just as pale. The other 2 students who had little presence looked at Daniel in amazement and couldn't help asking, how did he do it? Even John Dillon was curious about their questions. He couldn't help but imagine, could it be that Daniel had already mastered the floating technique before? No, it's impossible, he has already done the magic blank point, so there is only one possibility, he is a genius. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but get excited. It seems that his decision is right. Daniel should stay in the key class, and he is a veritable genius boy. However, as a teacher, you still can't show this excitement too much, so as not to make the students too proud. He paused and said, "Okay, Daniel, hurry down." "Okay, teacher." Daniel got off the ground and took off his shoes quickly. What are you doing?" John Dillon said. "Luca said he wanted to eat my socks." Daniel said. Luca Rossi's mouth trembled, and after coming to his senses, he said, I was joking." Daniel thought, "Humph, if I lose, I really don't know what they will do. I can't let them go this time. I don't ask him to really eat socks, but I just ask them to be a little more cautious about him in the future. He doesn't want to cause trouble, but he doesn't want others to provoke him at every turn." "Are you kidding? I heard your tone just now, it doesn't sound like a joke." Daniel said, "Don't worry, my socks are clean, I am a very hygienic person, I take a shower every day. But I have been standing all day today, so it is inevitable that my feet are sweaty, just bear it and it will pass." "Joke, really a joke, hey, don't you say it." Luca Rossi said to Anthony Miller and George Malone. He looked at Alan Hawthorne and found that he was already frozen in place, his eyes were straight, and he couldn't even shout. Anthony and George reacted and said quickly, yes, it's a joke." "You are so funny when you cheat," Daniel said with a smile, "so all nobles like to cheat, or is it only your Rossi family that likes to cheat?" When Luca Rossi heard this, his face turned red with anger and his mouth twitched. Daniel looked at Luca and found it very funny. These nobles who pay attention to their status, just use their status to make things happen, this is called hitting the snake at its weakest point. "Hey! It's all a joke." Although Luca was angry, his tone was much weaker. "How loud it was just now, how weak it is now." "All right, Daniel, that's enough." John Dillon said, "Even if it's not a joke, if you really want him to eat his socks, I won't allow it, at least not in my class. Of course, even if you lose, I won't let you eat his socks." "He started it first," Daniel said, spreading his hands, "but since Teacher Dillon has spoken, let's forget it this time. Anyway, the goal has been achieved. Even if he doesn't call him a coward in the future, he can always use this incident to make a fuss in the future." "All right, school is over, everyone is gone." John Dillon said. Lucara got on Alan, and just as they were about to leave, Daniel said again, "Teacher. What's the matter?" John Dillon turned around and said, this time he was smiling, completely without the previous impatience. "Didn't you say that the first place will have a reward?" Daniel said, "Where's my reward?" John Dillon patted his head, "Oh, yes, I almost forgot. The reward is that I will personally take you home." "Ah, that's it?" Daniel said, "Thank you, teacher. I can go home by myself. Although I live in the slums, it is still safe along the way. Or you can reimburse me for the carriage fare." John Dillon smiled and said, "How long will it take you to go home by carriage?" "About an hour." Daniel said. "Then I will teleport you back." John said. Alan looked at Daniel when he heard it, and envy, shock, and disbelief all gathered on his face. Teleportation, he has never experienced teleportation spells at this age. Although teleportation is also a practical magic, it is indeed several levels higher than levitation. After all, it is related to different spatial dimensions. For Daniel, it was even more pleasantly surprised. If he could copy the teleportation spell, he would not have to get up early to go to school in the future, and he could go wherever he wanted. "Then what are you waiting for?" Daniel said, "Teacher, let's start now. What do you need me to do?" "Wait a moment." John took out a bottle of blue potion and drank it. He had consumed too much magic when he just levitated Daniel, and now he needs to replenish it. After drinking, John added to them, "If you only use the levitation spell to make yourself float, it will hardly consume too much magic, but you know the consequences of letting others float. So don't use the levitation spell on others. The benefits are too small and the gains are not worth the losses." Except for Alan, they all nodded. Okay, Daniel, hold my forearm and focus on where you are going now. John Dillon said. Daniel closed his eyes and then held Teacher Dillon's arm for about 5 seconds, and only felt a gust of wind blowing. Okay, open your eyes. John said. Daniel opened his eyes and saw that he was already in his bedroom. Is this your bedroom? John Dillon said. Daniel nodded. I think this skill is more practical than any other skill. I want to learn it. It will take at least 2 years to teach this. John Dillon smiled and said, this is not a levitation spell that can be mastered by concentrating your attention. No matter how smart you are, if you want to master this teleportation spell, you will not be able to do it for a year or 2, and it also involves your teleportation distance. Daniel listened patiently. He couldn't tell the teacher that he had cheated. When John Dillon was explaining, he saw his door open. They looked over and saw Rob Hawkins standing at the door with a kitchen knife. When Rob saw them, he was stunned for a moment. Ah, son. Excuse me, let me introduce you. Daniel said, this is my father, Rob Hawkins. This is my teacher, John Dillon. Ah, they are teachers from the Wizard Academy. Rob Hawkins was at a loss for a moment. After a while, he shouted to the corridor, Susan, come up quickly. Chapter 19. Dynamic Visualization. Emma Hawkins was so excited that she couldn't speak when the teacher of the Wizard Academy came. Rob was at a loss. Just as he was about to shake hands with him, he found that he was holding a kitchen knife in his hand. He quickly put the kitchen knife aside, wiped his hands and shook hands with John. After shaking hands, Rob was quite worried and said, Teacher, has my son committed a crime? Daniel. John. To be honest, John Dillon regretted sending Daniel home. It's not because they live in the slums that hurt his identity as a blue-robe wizard. It can be said that among the wizards in the entire Dawn Town, he is the only one who cares least about his identity and origin, especially his identity as a student. But he didn't expect the Hawkins family to be so hospitable and enthusiastic. At the invitation of Daniel's father, even his uncle, aunt, cousin, and their family came. Especially the aunt named Susan, who insisted on dragging him to eat. The enthusiasm was hard to refuse, and Daniel also invited him. After all, facing such a genius student, he should give him some face. It must be said that his aunt's cooking skills are very good, and considering the richness, this meal must have cost them a lot. However, although he was moved, he still regretted having dinner with his aunt in the face of her words, although he could understand his mother's care for her son. In fact, it was not just Teacher Dillon who regretted it. Daniel also regretted it because the teacher told his father about the tuition reduction at the dinner table. This meant that he lost control of the money given by his father, so he could not upgrade his skills in the system. In desperation, after Teacher Dillon left, Daniel returned the 30 gold coins to his father. Rob took the purse, opened it and counted and dug inside. Daniel was quite unhappy when he saw his father counting the money. I didn't touch a penny. Rob ignored him and continued to count seriously. Daniel felt bored, turned away, and drank beer by himself. After a while, there was a click on the table. Daniel turned his head and saw that the purse was back in front of him. I took back 10 gold coins, and the rest are yours. Anyway, your brother still has 1 year, and I will save up 10 gold coins for your brother next year. Robert said. Daniel felt mixed emotions, a warm current, but he also remembered the various physical violence and verbal humiliations his father had used against him before, just because he was picked up by them. Although all this is human nature, it is hard to imagine what would happen to him if he really had no ability at all. However, he thought again that he had traveled to this world and had no relatives. Now it seems that at least his family members don't look too bad. It's better to have family than no family. What's the matter? Robert saw his son's bitter face and couldn't help but said. Why don't you give me the rest of the gold coins? Daniel said, just think of it as a loan from you. I promise that I will be responsible for David's tuition after 1 year. Moreover, it's better to keep the money with me than with you. Rob. Daniel's room. The curtains were drawn tight, and after a round, 35 gold coins were piled in front of Daniel in piles of 10. He opened the system panel. Teleportation detected, please ask if the host wants to copy. Yes. Loading. Loading completed. Teleportation activated. Hehe, with teleportation, from now on, my mother no longer has to worry about my further studies, saving the carriage fee. However, he still decided to try to conceal it from others first, and keep a low profile. There is no need to be too pretentious, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble. Then, he clicked on the guard skill column. Ice Shield LV1 upgradable. Do you want to spend 10 golds? Yes. Upgrade successful. Ice Shield LV2 upgradable. In the blink of an eye, before he could react, a pile of gold on the table disappeared. It seems that this system is automatically deducting fees. He couldn't help but guess that as long as he is sure that the money belongs to him, he can activate the upgrade. He plans to continue upgrading the Ice Shield. Ice Shield LV2 LV3. Spend 15 golds, do you want to upgrade? Damn, the price has increased, so black. He opened the offensive column. Ice Cone upgradable. Upgrade costs 10 gold coins. It seems that the price is 5 gold coins more for each upgrade. If that's true, it's not bad. In the Wizard Academy, you can't use offensive magic without permission, so he decided to continue upgrading the Ice Shield. Another pile and a half of gold coins disappeared out of thin air. It must be said that this automatic payment is still very convenient. He only has 10 gold coins left now. He originally thought that he would just use the remaining money to upgrade the ice cone, but then he thought about it and decided not to. He still had to keep some cash on him just in case. Hey, what is that? Just when he was about to close the system panel, he found an extra settings button in the upper right corner. Oh my god, he has been traveling for so many days, and this system is too slow to load. Anyway, there is nothing to do, so let's take a look. Dynamic visualization of other people's and own health values on /off. Dynamic visualization of other people's and own magic values on /off. It's a good thing at first glance, Daniel thought, turn it on, turn it on. At this time, two values appeared dynamically in the upper left corner of his sight with his thoughts. Life, 50/50ths. Magic, 75/75ths. After the four saw Daniel and teacher Dylan disappear from their sight, Alan Hawthorne finally regained some consciousness. Luca and others widened their eyes, and Anthony and George sighed in admiration. Alan understood that at this moment, he had to save face as soon as possible. What's the matter? Daniel lives in the slums. We all have spacious and comfortable carriages, what's so rare about this? What's more, within half a year, I will definitely be the first person to learn teleportation, and I can take you home when the time comes. Well. Anthony and George responded coldly. It's late, go back. Luca Rossi, he patted Alan on the shoulder and said, no matter what, he is still a civilian. Ha ha ha, yes, just a civilian. Alan Hawthorne laughed. After leaving the academy, Alan parted ways with them and got into his own carriage. He clenched his fists, frowned, and looked unwilling. Damn the ancient gods, he punched his legs hard. How could it be possible? Why did I master the levitation technique so quickly? There must be something wrong. Did Daniel hide himself? No, it's impossible. According to his level, it's impossible to avoid the detection of the magic blank point, unless his ability is better than that of teacher John Dillon. Ah! Is he better than the teacher? He didn't dare to think about it anymore. He thought all the way and finally came to the conclusion that Daniel Hawkins was just a coincidence. Chapter 20. How much is this piece of garbage worth? There was no one else in the room, Daniel thought. It seems that the value in the upper left corner is his own. However, in order to verify it better, he knocked on his father's door. He only heard a burst of rapid breathing from his father's room. Who is it? Because the who is it in this world is very similar to come in, and Rob has drunk a lot of wine and his speech is slurred, so he opened the door and went in directly. The moment he entered, Daniel was stunned. As far as he knew, there were no very effective protective measures in this world. Did they calculate the date or determine to have a third child? Rob found Daniel. Although he was angry, he did not put away his gun and continued to output. Emma tried to push him away, but to no avail. Who asked you to come in? Get out of here. It seemed that Rob had a lot of experience in this scene. Daniel found an extra value in the upper right corner. Rob Hawkins. Health, 1000/1000. Magic, 0/0. Looking at this value, Daniel was stunned. He stood still and couldn't help thinking that his father's health was more than 20 times his. He was indeed a trained knight who had been on the battlefield. If his father had thrown a punch at him, his 50 points of health would have been gone in an instant. Instantly, a slipper flew in front of Daniel and knocked him off balance. I told you to get out, did you hear me? Under the arrangement and instructions of Teacher Dylan, the Wizard Academy did not need to go there every day. The teacher assigned tasks, and he would practice after returning home, and check according to Teacher Dylan's requirements after a week. Originally, he complained about why the academy did not provide accommodation options. It turned out that this was the way to learn. In general, the master led the way, and the practice was up to the individual. In addition, with the existence of teleportation, there was no need for accommodation. However, he had already completed the task this week, and with nothing to do, he began to think about ways to make money. When he thought about making money, he thought of the wand he had looted in the ogre cave before. He took it out of the box, and the moment he held the wand in his hand, he felt a wonderful change in his body. Although it was not much, it was much better than the one in the academy. The system sensed his intention, and the value in the upper left corner appeared. Health 100/100. Magic 150/150. Wow, it doubled directly. After he put down the ogre wand, he picked up the wand issued by the academy again and compared it. Health 50/50ths. Magic 95/95ths. Wow, it turns out that the health value did not increase at all, and the magic value only increased by 20 from the original base. Such garbage can be sold for 1 gold, so how much can this ogre wand in my hand sell for? Instead of guessing here, he planned to go to the weapon store in the city center to see for himself. The next morning, after breakfast at his aunt's house, Henry Hawkins actually took the initiative to ask to go to the academy together. He declined and just briefly explained the content of the class, then said he would go back to his room to practice. After listening to his cousin's words, Henry Hawkins had to admit that the key class was indeed different. He started learning spells directly, while he was still reciting the rules of the academy. Today he was going to school to memorize. After Daniel returned to his room, he locked the door, closed his eyes, and concentrated. This was his first time using teleportation. Although the system had ensured that he had learned it, he was still a little nervous. Moreover, he felt that his casting time was obviously longer than that of Teacher Dylan. After about 2 minutes, he felt that the air around him was circulating rapidly, as if a stream of air was wrapping him. Yes, this feeling is right. With a swish, he disappeared. Yes, it's here, at the gate of the Dawn Wizard Academy. Although it took a little longer, at least the destination was correct. However, he also felt a sense of weakness. He looked at the upper left corner. Life 100/100. Magic 10/150. Oh my god, I was able to teleport here entirely because of the ogre wand, which means the ogre wand cannot be sold. Forget it, since I'm here, I might as well go to the weapon shop and have a look. At least I can get an estimate of the price and have a rough idea. Besides, my magic power is almost exhausted now, so I can only take a carriage back later. Daniel came to a weapon shop. Welcome to Brock's Magical Instrument Shop, a middle-aged, fat man wearing round frame glasses and a linen robe came up and said, "This is the best shop in the entire Dawn Town. Judging from the style of your robe, you are a student wizard of the Dawn Wizard Academy." Daniel nodded, "That's right, but how did you know? The robes you are wearing are custom-made from us." The middle-aged, fat man said proudly, "I don't think you are a local. It's your first time here." Daniel nodded and looked around at the dazzling array of magic wands and robes. However, there was no clear price on it. He knew very well that the boss just wanted to serve the dishes to the person and pick the weak persimmon. Whether buying or selling, it would be a round of haggling. This is the transaction mode that Daniel hates the most. "You are the boss?" Daniel said. Yes. I wonder what you need." the boss said with a smile. Daniel felt uncomfortable with his smile, and felt that the other party, this old-timer, was about to make a killing on him. However, the purpose this time was also very simple, that is, to ask the price, to get the basic price of a commodity as an anchor point. "Do you accept magic wands here?" Daniel said. When the boss heard that the young man in front of him was here to sell magic wands, a trace of disappointment flashed across his face, but soon his face returned to normal and said, "Yes, I don't know what your magic wand looks like." Daniel took out the magic wand from his arms and handed it to the boss. The boss's eyes widened slightly, and his expression quickly returned to normal. Daniel noticed all the subtle expressions of the boss. The boss's mind was working fast, and he immediately made a good assessment of the wand. Well, your wand can only be considered purple equipment. When Daniel heard that it was purple equipment, he felt excited. He remembered a game he played on Blue Star, where purple equipment was considered the best equipment. Purple equipment? So it is the best. Are you kidding? The boss laughed. As a student of the Wizard Academy, don't you know? What? According to the red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue and purple levels, red is the highest level and purple is the lowest level. The boss said, your wand is not worth much money, at most it is worth a gold coin. When Daniel heard this, what the hell was this, and he cursed in his heart, boss, you just said that the robes of the Dawn Wizard Academy were customized by you. The students' robes are indeed customized by me. The boss said. What about the wand? It was also customized by me. The boss pushed his glasses. Okay, Daniel took out the wand issued by the Academy from his waist, slapped it on the table and said, then how much do you think this piece of garbage is worth? Chapter 21. No sale, just no sale. At the same time, Daniel also saw the school wand on the counter. Only that wand was clearly marked with a price. In a prominent position, it was clearly written same as Dawn Wizard Academy, 2 golds. Such garbage is worth 2 golds. Daniel said, then my ogre wand is much more than 2 golds. But I am receiving goods now, the boss said, you have to give me some profit margin. Besides, how can you conclude that what Dawn Academy sends is garbage? Daniel sneered and muttered in his heart, because of the system numerical feedback. Besides, you said that my ogre wand is only purple level equipment, so the school wand is also purple level. No matter how you look at it, the ogre wand is better than the school wand. Daniel said. The boss was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that the student who came today was a thorn, and he also had some business acumen. If it were other noble students, or even teachers, he, as the boss, would say how much money, and they would have to agree to how much money. However, as a boss who has been in this industry for many years, he is naturally not a pushover. Hey, not all purple level equipment is the same, it can only be said that your ogre wand can only be regarded as purple equipment, and the level is slightly higher. Then tell me, how much can you sell it for? Daniel said. 1.5 gold, the most. The boss said. Don't talk nonsense. Daniel said. Okay, 1.8 gold, if it works, it works, if it doesn't, forget it. The boss said. Daniel took the ogre wand back and put the college wand in front of the boss. How about this, I won't sell the ogre wand, let's see how much you can sell this rubbish. Oh, there are a lot of such rubbish wands in my store. The boss said, and you can't sell it. Can't sell it? Why can't you sell it? Daniel said. Not only can you not sell it, maybe you will have to buy several from me in the future. The boss said proudly. What are you talking about? Even if you have this so-called ogre wand, I'm afraid it will be useless in the academy. The boss said, you still don't understand what I've said. I don't understand. Daniel was stunned by the boss at this moment. In the academy, at least you students can only use the wands issued by the academy. If it breaks, you can either buy it from the green-robed wizard in the academy or buy it from me. Oh, I see. Principal Mueller said that at least it only costs 1 gold coin to buy it in the academy. Why should I come to you and spend 2 gold coins? Haha, do you think you can find the green-robed wizard if you want to find it? The boss said, you will only have the opportunity to see the green-robed wizard when the academy asks you to pay. Once your wand is broken or lost, you can't find the green-robed wizard at that time, and you are in a hurry to use it, and finally you can only come to me. The boss's demeanor made Daniel very unhappy. So that's it. The academy and the businessmen are colluding. No wonder the boss is so arrogant. No matter what, I won't sell it. I won't sell anything. When Daniel was about to put away the ogre wand, the boss quickly held Daniel's hand and the ogre wand. Wait, the boss said, I think you are also a talent. Let's do this. I'll give you 3 gold coins. It's already sincere enough. Daniel thought that the fox's tail was finally exposed, but he didn't intend to sell it today. Without saying a word, he pushed the boss's hand away, put the ogre wand back into his waist, turned around and left. When he was about to walk to the door, he heard the boss shout. Okay, 5 gold coins. 5 gold coins at most. The boss's tone was a little anxious. It seemed that 5 gold coins was the highest. The boss was not willing to give up. He hadn't opened the store all day today. It was not easy for a young man to come. He thought he could make a lot of money, but he didn't expect that he would come to be a thorn in the trade. In addition, he had been arguing with him for so long. The customer had sunk costs, but so did the boss. He called a few more times, but Daniel still opened the door and left. It seems that he has to sell the real thing. He heard the boss shouting, "What's your name?" Daniel turned his head and looked at the boss, stunned. After all, what does this have to do with his name? Humph, it doesn't matter if you don't tell me your name. Anyway, I have remembered you. The boss said, "Wu Jin Sa, if you leave this door, you won't be able to get this price again. Moreover, today's deal must be done, otherwise." What else? Daniel knew he was threatened. Otherwise, if your school wand is broken in the future, you come to me, I won't sell it to you, and then you can see what you will do. The boss said. Daniel sneered and pushed the door open. Through the window, the boss saw that Daniel really walked away, and sighed, "What a master." Daniel didn't know that he didn't want to sell it at all. After all, this ogre wand was the best wand he had. Based on his experience, although in different worlds, human nature is still the same. If his ogre wand could be sold for 5 gold coins, then according to the boss's black heart, if it was hung in the window for sale, it would at least triple, that is, 15 gold coins, which is his tuition for a year. Thinking of this, he wanted to go back to Sonk Forest and loot a few more ogre wands. Seeing that it was getting late, he found that after arguing with the boss for so long, his magic value was only 3 points higher than the original base, and he couldn't use teleportation. Counting the journey time, he had to call a carriage to go back now. Hey, wait a minute, he saw an alchemy pharmacy not far away, and he suddenly had an idea. Facts have proved that his idea was right. Buying a bottle of purple level magic potion, which is the lowest level, only costs 25 copper coins, and as a student of Dawn Magic Academy, you can buy one and get one free. He drank a bottle and looked at the upper left corner. His magic value had been completely restored. Moreover, he also discovered that although he was equipped with 2 magic wands, the magic value was calculated based on the strongest equipment and could not be superimposed. Although calling a carriage doesn't cost as much as 25 copper coins, he is still willing to do it. After all, the time saved can go back to drink cold beer as soon as possible. Although there is a famine in Sonk Town, it does not seem to have much impact except for the higher prices in Chinexite Town. What's more, the prices in the slums are much cheaper than those in the city center. Now that the magic value has been restored, he can use teleportation at any time, so there is no need to rush back. What's more, the market center also started to become lively. After traveling here, he hadn't had a good look at the world yet. Therefore, he planned to go back later, so he walked towards the market center. After all, he was very interested in these lively stalls, which were much more interesting than the colorful shopping malls selling luxury goods like Blue Star. Chapter 22, Performing Arts. It turns out that Daniel's feeling was right, this market is indeed interesting. Everything is sold in the market, including antiques and exotic treasures from all over the world. Of course, this must be done with suspicion. There are also some street stalls that sell books, including various history books and even spell books, but I don't know if they are useful or not. He also remembered the rules of the academy. Teacher John Dillon once said that not all spells can be used. If you encounter black magic, your soul will be taken away by the evil god in a matter of minutes, and you may become a slave of the evil god. So be good at screening. In addition to some rare antiques, of course there is food. Although the imagination of food in this world is not as good as that of the Blue Star celestial people, to be honest, apart from bread, the taste is not bad. To be honest, if he hadn't been used to this the world's backward kitchen stove, if he takes action, his cooking skills will definitely amaze people in this world. Moreover, he had never eaten any seafood except chicken, duck, cattle, and sheep. By the way, he could open a restaurant here, but he just doesn't have the capital. Money, money, money is needed everywhere, even the system needs money. Going a little further, he found someone performing acrobatics. He saw someone blindfolded and throwing knives at the Tide Man. Some people wore funny clown costumes and threw balls in the air, and some even drank and performed fire breathing. When Daniel saw them, he had an idea. Based on his own level, he came up with an idea to make a fortune. Since it is an idea, it must be put into practice. After all, practice brings true knowledge. He thought about it for a while and then shouted, "Who wants to experience levitation? Come and have a look." He recalled the scene when he was in college, working part-time for a clothing store that held events, and shouting on the roadside. After shouting several times, a muscular man finally came and looked at Daniel curiously. "Do you want to experience the levitation technique?" Daniel smiled. "How much?" "A silver scatter," Daniel said. "Hey, so expensive." The man waved his hand and said, "Forget it, it doesn't cost much to watch acrobatics, just a few copper coins." At first, Daniel thought that his price was too high. After thinking about it again, he insisted, "I am different. I can let you experience floating for your whole life, not let you watch me float." The man waved his hands and said, "Forget it." Daniel was too lazy to talk nonsense to him. When the man was about to leave, he directly used the levitation technique on the man and saw that the man was half a meter above the ground. 1 second, 2 seconds, enough. Daniel quickly put the man down, and then quickly looked to the upper right corner. Magic power, 140/150. Sure enough, letting someone float for 2 seconds consumes 10 points of magic power. Just when he thought this business couldn't be done, the man unexpectedly said, "It's so amazing. Can we do it again? The time just now was just for you to experience it. This time there is a fee, which is still 1 silver. Daniel said, "But it's still 2 seconds. Can it be longer? Can it be higher?" The man asked. Daniel's mind was spinning quickly and he immediately calculated that 2 bottles of potion only cost 25 coins. He could use all his magic power without losing money. "I can make you float up to 2 meters high," Daniel said. "As for the time, it should be about 10 seconds. Okay, deal." The man said excitedly. "Pay the money first." The man took out a silver coin and handed it to Daniel. "Ready," Daniel said after taking the money. 1, 2, 3. The man floated up, and when he slowly rose to a height of 2 meters, he couldn't help but roar. Unknowingly, he attracted a lot of people to watch. When Daniel saw this, he thought it was a good publicity opportunity, so he tried his best to keep the man floating longer. After about 10 seconds, Daniel could no longer hold on and could only let the man fall to the ground slowly. "It's amazing," the man said, "the moment I floated up, I felt that life was full of strength, hope and enthusiasm. Thank you." Through the man's words, Daniel probably understood that this was not just the result of people levitating, but must be an additional effect of magic flowing through the mortal body. Magic value, 0/150. It seemed that the magic value was empty. Daniel quickly drank another bottle of magic potion and saw. Magic value, 150/150. Hehe, it's full again, and he continues to receive customers. Daniel said, levitation, who of you still wants to try it? It's agreed, it's 1 silver, no bargaining. I. Passers-by said in a hurry. In this way, he received a total of about 10 customers tonight. After deducting the negligible cost of magic potions, he earned at least 10 silver coins tonight. Hey, it turns out that money is so easy to make. At present, this is a good way to make money. In the end, he kept the last bottle of magic potion and let himself teleport home. 6 days had passed, and no matter how hard Alan Hawthorne tried, he could not master the levitation technique. Ever since he saw Daniel mastering the levitation technique, he had been upset at home. He had mastered the thunder element, which was so difficult to master, let alone a mere levitation technique. Although he was not the first to master it, he couldn't master it after spending 6 days. He was going to the academy to check it out tomorrow. Could it be that he really had to dig in the soil with those alchemists? The more upset he was, the harder it was for him to concentrate, and the harder it was for him to concentrate, the harder it was to master. Mrs. Hawthorne was distressed to see her son not wanting to eat or drink all day, and she proposed to invite the tutor back to explain to him. But Alan Hawthorne refused. He believed that Daniel Hawkins relied on the levitation technique he mastered, and if he asked the tutor to help, wouldn't it be more confirmed that he was not as good as him? In any case, he must master the levitation technique before tomorrow. Moreover, why did he choose to come to the worst Dawn Wizard Academy? It was because of the principle of being the head of a chicken rather than the tail of a phoenix. His goal was to be the best top student in the same class. In this way, all classmates would look up to him, and teachers would pay more attention to him. This is what he really wanted, instead of being ignored in the best academy. However, all this seemed to be taken away by Daniel Hawkins, and what made him even more uncomfortable was that the guy was just a poor man. Except Daniel Hawkins, John Dillon checked the 4 nobles one by one. After a night of training, Alan Hawthorne still had no results, so he had to invite a tutor to come overnight. Now he can barely get off the ground, but he can only hold on for about a second before falling down. Needless to say, the other 3 did not move at all. Chapter 23. Principal Mueller in the cafeteria. Principal Mueller is in a good mood today because he has secured funding and funds from many nobles for the school, among which Earl Hawthorne, Earl Rossi, Earl Miller and Earl Malone have received the most funding. That is, the 4 students who received the top 5 honors among freshmen and received tuition exemptions. The tuition fees for the 4 of them are a drop in the bucket compared to the donations from their families. As for that Hawkins, well, forget it, don't think about it, it makes me feel sick just thinking about it. Principal Mueller sighed, put down his quill, stood up and stretched. He had already dealt with the paperwork all morning. He thought to himself, it's already been a week since school started, why not go to the key classes and do some activities on the way? Snooze. He came all the way to the empty classroom, hey, why is there no one? Went to the dummy training ground again, hey, there was still no one. They couldn't be found in the library, the yard, the backyard square, or the hall. Where have all the students in key classes gone? Is it possible that they are practicing at home and haven't come to school yet? Impossible. He just met Earl Hawthorne and others today. They all said that their children came to the academy today, and they also praised them for practicing levitation at home very hard. He looked at his pocket watch. It was almost noon now. Although it was still a bit early, would they be waiting for dinner in the canteen? Although the possibility is a bit low, there is no place he can look for. When Principal Mueller went to the dining hall, except for a few cooks working sparsely, he found that there was only one student, and that was the student who irritated him the most, Daniel Hawkins. Seeing Daniel milling around the cook, he didn't feel very good, and his expression became even worse. He walked forward and found Daniel Hawkins chatting and laughing with the cooks, mingling with each other. During the conversation, he actually shared his cooking experience. Hey, these things, the poor are the poor, these despicable jobs, the poor will never touch them. When the cooks saw a flash of red appear in the canteen, they immediately shut up subconsciously, lowered their heads to work, and carefully prepared lunch for the students. After a while, they took a look and were more certain that it was Principal Mueller. They were all glad that they shut up early. Only Daniel, who had his back to Principal Mueller, was still talking. Did you know? In this world, in addition to roasting, beef can also be cut into small slices and stir-fried directly with onions. Unfortunately, you don't have a pot. If it's the kind of fat and thin beef, cut it into thin slices and fry it directly. To eat it hot, of course, you have to pay attention to the soup base and sauce. You must have never tried sesame sauce, especially Santee sauce, how can you say it? Ahem. Daniel turned his head and said with a smile, hey, Principal Mueller, are you coming to eat too? Hearing Daniel's words, the cooks were stunned and stopped what they were doing. They couldn't help but look at Daniel and began to guess, how could this guy talk to Principal Mueller in such a joking manner? Could it be that this Daniel's father is also a noble? Even a very high-level noble? Principal Mueller said coldly, look, you are the only student in the entire cafeteria. Is there any problem with this? Daniel asked confused. Principal Mueller didn't know what to say for a moment, it's not lunchtime yet. Daniel said, hee hee. I know, but I have nothing to do, so I came here to get a good seat. By the way, Principal, all the food here is free, unlimited, you can eat as much as you want. You. Principal Mueller's face turned red after hearing this, how come you have nothing to do? Where are your classmates? I know, you must have skipped class. Okay, you will know how to do it not long after you start school. You skipped class. Come on, follow me to the solitary room. I will punish you with a week of solitary confinement. This week, you will have nothing to eat except bread. After saying that, the principal took Daniel and started to leave. Daniel quickly stopped and said, wait, I misunderstood. I have completed all the tasks I should complete. But my 4 classmates did not complete the tasks, so why are they being punished now? Principal Mueller was stunned. What? Being punished? How could you be punished? Say it again. So, Daniel Hawkins recounted in detail what happened in the class, including the practice of levitation. Not only that, he also spoke so vividly that even the cooks couldn't help but stop and listen to Daniel's narration. They couldn't help but think, good guy. Daniel didn't say that he was a genius throughout the whole story, but he revealed that he was a genius everywhere. It's a genius. Principal Mueller was even more unbelievable after hearing this. His first reaction was that Daniel was talking nonsense and making up lies. There were 2 suspicions. First, Daniel mastered the levitation technique in one afternoon? How is it possible? As far as he knows, even the current genius Pope does not have this learning speed. Can he be better than the Pope? Second, those 4 nobles have not mastered the floating technique for a week. How is this possible? Among this year's freshmen, they are the top students in the school. However, what made him even more embarrassed was that teacher Dylan actually punished them. He didn't dare to think about it anymore and said to Daniel, "You, take me to find them. If I find out that you are telling lies and dare to lie to me, you should pack your things and leave now. After all, our Morning Wizard Academy is a college that pays attention to honor. There is no room for a liar like you." Faced with the threat from Principal Mueller, Daniel was not to be outdone. After all, he had been in the workplace at Blue Star and had seen the world. This kind of thing could scare ordinary students. However, despite this, the surface work still needs to be done. Daniel pretended to be frightened by the principal's power and said, "Well, if I didn't lie, so what?" Principal Mueller was stunned again. Oh my God, in just one morning, he was stunned several times by a civilian boy. "You are so brave, you dare to negotiate with me." Daniel Hawkins quickly jumped off the table and said, "I dare not. It is my honor as a student to be able to walk with the great and wise Alex Mueller, the principal of the Morning Wizard Academy. Please follow me." Although Principal Mueller listened to Daniel's praise, he always felt uncomfortable. However, the most urgent task now is to find Alan Hawthorne and other 4 students. In this way, Daniel Hawkins walked in front with a smile, and Principal Mueller walked behind with a bitter face. Other students who passed by and saw the principal said, "Hello, Principal Mueller." When these students saw Principal Mueller's serious and tense face, they all wondered what happened to the usually amiable principal and why he was following behind a freshman. Chapter 24. Happy Air. There is a large piece of land behind the castle of the Wizard Academy, and the southeast part of it is divided out for the alchemy department. A large number of herbs are planted on this land, some for experiments, and some for making basic magic supplements and medical potions for internal use by teachers and students. It is summer now, the sun is scorching, and it is still very hot. When Daniel walked out of the back door of the castle, he wanted to take off his thick robe. What Principal Mueller didn't expect was that Alan Hawthorne and others were sweating, facing the Lois and back to the sky, following the alchemist to plant silver anemones. And John Dillon was taking a nap in the shade. Oh my God, what is going on? He walked up to John and clapped his hands. John Dillon woke up from his sleep, and when he saw that it was Principal Mueller, he quickly straightened up and saluted Principal Mueller with confused eyes. The alchemist looked up, said hello to Principal Mueller, and continued to work in the soil. Daniel looked at the alchemist and felt like Yuan Longping. He liked the alchemist a lot. You know, after crossing into this world, Daniel didn't like many people so far. Maybe it was the culture he experienced on Blue Star before crossing, he had a natural resistance to such aristocratic status. If it wasn't a punishment, Daniel would have wanted to go up and plant magic herbs with the alchemist. Great, the principal is here. Luca whispered. Yes, yes, Anthony quickly echoed on the side, oh my God, my robe is soaked with sweat. That's nothing, I can't even straighten my back. George said, if coming to the academy to learn magic is so tiring, I wouldn't have come earlier. Stop talking nonsense, now that the principal is here, we are saved. Don't you think so, Alan? Luca pushed Alan. Well, Alan said, depressed, just following the alchemist to plant. Anthony said, what happened to you, Alan? It's fine if we were punished, but why are you punished too? George said, yes, Alan, you are the one who shouldn't be punished the most. Okay, stop talking. Luca interrupted quickly, and then looked at Alan, who was angry. Alan, you broke the silver anemone with such force. The alchemist said angrily, although silver anemone is common, it doesn't mean you can destroy it so casually. Be careful, I will take you to Sunk Forest to find seedlings. Alan was scolded by the alchemist. He had never been wronged like this since he was a child, especially after he mastered the thunder method. The family regarded him as a treasure, and he was the one who was the most respected among all the brothers and sisters. Since he came here, he was punished by the wizard who had just been promoted to the green robe, and was scolded by the alchemist he despised the most. He threw the silver lotus seedlings in his hand to the ground and said angrily, "You can plant them if you want, I won't." After Principal Mueller learned about the situation from Teacher Dylan, especially when he heard that they would be punished for a week, he hurriedly said, "Call them down from the field quickly, this is simply nonsense." Yes, for Principal Mueller, he couldn't take the funds from the four nobles and then punish their sons. John Dylan said in a serious voice, "Report to the principal, I'm sorry that I can't comply with your request. Rules are rules, and I will accept the loss." It must be said that after these words came out, Daniel Hawkins had a good impression of Teacher John Dylan, thinking that there was one more person who was pleasing to the eye. Principal Mueller was defeated by John Dylan, but he was helpless. After returning to the office, he felt like a fool. If he hadn't been a good friend of John Dylan's father and had saved his life during the battle, he would have fired Dylan long ago. Alas, he looked out the window and sighed, "Old Dylan, why is your son so stubborn? It's really hard for me to do my job." Later, he thought about it and felt that he was also a fool. It was fine to promote Dylan to a blue robe, but why did he let him teach the key class? So he sat back in his seat and opened the staff manual. After flipping through it for a long time, he found that no one was qualified for this job. Those who were qualified were teaching senior grades. Alas, there is really nothing more depressing than these. I'd better think about how I will respond to the four earls when they ask questions. The most depressing thing is that he really wants to teach Daniel a lesson, but he can't find a reason. He has no reputation. Daniel Hawkins. Alex Mueller repeated this name several times, gritting his teeth more and more. For the chefs who have mastered the appetite of all teachers and students in the entire Wizard Academy, the biggest fun today is Daniel Hawkins. At first, they thought Daniel was talking nonsense. Seeing him being taken away by the serious Principal Mueller, especially knowing that Daniel Hawkins had no background, they all felt that Daniel was in danger this time. Happy is happy. If Daniel was really driven away, they would really feel sorry for Daniel, because they like Daniel very much. They have worked here for so many years, and Daniel is the only wizard student who is willing to chat with them. After all, as a wizard, this profession is naturally sacred in this world. Even if you are not a noble, as long as you are a wizard, you are higher than those non-wizard professions. More importantly, they feel a sense of equality in Daniel. God, we're chatting with wizards on equal terms, that's what those cooks really think. After they talked to this point, they couldn't help but feel lonely, and the overall working atmosphere returned to the mechanical and depressing work process before. Until Daniel comes back. "Hi, hello, I'm here again. Where were we talking about just now?" "Oh, yes, it's fat and thin beef cut into thin slices and blanched. This is called hot pot in my hometown." When the cooks saw Daniel, they quickly put down their work and gathered around. They all joked, "Why, the principal didn't tell you to get out." "Fuck you." Daniel smiled and said, "To be honest, brothers, please give me a chance." "Opportunity? What opportunity? Let me cook a meal in your kitchen." Daniel discovered that although the kitchen in the Wizarding Academy also had a wood-burning stove, it was certainly not comparable to the gas stove he used before traveling through time. Fortunately, the space was large enough and well-equipped. And there were so many people, he couldn't help but want to cook a meal with a real taste of his hometown. Ha 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 ha. After hearing Daniel's words, the cooks couldn't help laughing. "The wizard, a wizard, is going to cook in our kitchen, ha 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 ha, my ancient god." Some cooks laughed until tears came out. The entire dining hall, inside and outside the kitchen, was filled with a happy atmosphere. Chapter 25. Hawkins mashed potatoes. After a long morning of study, Henry Hawkins was ravenous. Although my cousin could have a richer meal when I got home in the evening, there was only a simple piece of black bread for breakfast. He touched the few copper coins in his pocket and couldn't help sighing. At most, it was just an extra piece of bread for breakfast. Watching his classmates eat steak and drink red wine, he swallowed his saliva. He simply sat in the corner and ate the black bread in a hurry, thinking of leaving this tempting dining hall. "Henry, where are you going?" Just when he stood up to leave, he heard someone calling him, and it was this familiar and unfamiliar voice again, "Dan." "Daniel." Daniel didn't care about the look on Henry's face and pulled him directly to the kitchen. After Henry realized his cousin's purpose, he quickly stopped and refused to enter the kitchen, because as a wizard, how could he enter the cook's place? In the eyes of wizards, cooks are servants. Entering the kitchen is equivalent to entering a servant's home. It is very embarrassing to be seen by other wizards. "Cousin, what are you doing? This is not what we can do." Henry shook off Daniel's hand and said angrily. Moreover, the logic of Daniel's behavior has always puzzled him, which is one of the reasons why Henry avoids his cousin. "There's nothing you can't do in the kitchen," Daniel said. "If you want to eat good food, come in with me." Henry turned to leave, but Daniel stepped directly in front of him and pushed him directly into the kitchen. "God, my cousin is so energetic. If it weren't for the wizard robe, I would really think Daniel was a warrior." As soon as Daniel entered the kitchen, he saw that the cooks inside were all happy. Even the head chef came to them, held his cousin's hand, and said excitedly, "I have never eaten such delicious potatoes." Henry wanted to leave quickly, but when he saw this scene, he was still quite curious about what tricks his cousin had done, not to mention, the smell of delicious food was wafting in the kitchen. I have to say that if Henry hadn't been so strapped for money, the food at Dawn Wizard Academy would still be pretty good. After a while, Daniel brought a plate of mushy stuff to him. "What is this?" Henry asked. Daniel smiled. "Potatoes." "Potatoes, oh, I've eaten this before," Henry said subconsciously. After saying this, he realized something was wrong. Why did he say such a thing? "I know you have eaten potatoes," Daniel said, "but you have never eaten potatoes with this flavor." Henry looked at the potatoes on the plate and couldn't help thinking that he had eaten lumpy potatoes before, but this was the first time he had seen mushy potatoes, but they did smell delicious. He picked up the spoon, took a spoonful and put it into his mouth. At that moment, his eyes widened involuntarily, and his taste buds were wrapped in the aroma. The potatoes could actually taste so smooth and taste so rich. I saw him hurriedly eating spoonful after spoonful, and in a few seconds, he finished the meal. "Do you want more?" Daniel asked. Henry nodded. "It's a pity that it's gone," Daniel said, "the rest have been eaten by them." "What is this? How can it be so delicious?" Henry asked. "This is mashed potatoes," Daniel said. Yes, this mashed potato is great. How on earth do you make it?" asked the head chef. "You want to learn?" The chef nodded. "If this dish is introduced in the canteen, it will definitely be very popular. Please teach me." "But..." Daniel pretended to hesitate. "I understand. I won't ask for your recipe for free. I'm willing to spend money to buy it. How much does it cost? Tell me." The chef bowed slightly and said sincerely. This actually made Daniel think deeply. After all, he had no idea how much a mashed potato recipe was worth in such a fantasy world. After thinking for a while, he came up with an idea. "Well, I can give you my recipe, but you have to name my mashed potatoes Hawkins mashed potatoes, and in this school, anyone with the surname Hawkins, yes, you can eat for free. What do you think?" After hearing this, the head chef was in a dilemma. One or two Hawkins didn't matter. What if there were too many Hawkins? With Daniel's appetite, he might be exhausted in minutes, and what if everyone is pretending to be Hawkins, so what should we do? So he told Daniel his concerns. Daniel laughed loudly after hearing this. "First, as far as I know, there are no more than 5 people with the surname Hawkins in this school. Second, if someone really pretends to be Hawkins, just ask them to show their identification. We all had it when we entered school, and we can only enter and exit the college freely with that certificate. Second, I will have more new dishes in the future." "I understand," the head chef said. "Okay, that's it." After Daniel and the chef formally reached a cooperation, he turned to look at Henry and made a scissor hand gesture, and made a face and said, "Our food will be taken care of from now on." After saying that, Daniel rolled up his sleeves and said, "You go and prepare fresh potatoes first. Be careful, they must be potatoes without sprouts and green spots. Don't fool me with defective products." After the potatoes were ready and washed, Daniel said, "Pay attention, I will only tell you once." Daniel explained it while making it, quite like a chef. The head chef was like a good boy, listening attentively. If there were hardcover notebooks and pens in this world, he would probably take notes very quickly, for fear of missing any detail. Henry looked at his cousin with mixed emotions. It was strange that he couldn't really admire his cousin's magical talent, but at the moment, his cousin, who was enjoying himself doing these menial chores in the kitchen, he felt a strange admiration for his cousin. "Ah!" did the chef sigh, "Details, all details, too fine. Ah! I didn't expect to use butter. Butter is not cheap. It seems that the price of this dish needs to be repriced." When Daniel carefully finished the last step, the whole kitchen burst into applause. Even Henry couldn't help but applaud. "Great, great!" the chef said repeatedly, "this is simply art. I didn't expect that a simple potato can have so many tricks. But, can the butter be replaced by something else? After all, butter the cost is simply too high." Daniel said, "Yes, you can use milk or cream." "Great, the milk is okay, but what is the cream?" asked the chef. Well, Daniel thought, it looks like there's a new project. Chapter 26. Hawkins mashed potatoes too. The chef of Dawn Wizard Academy is a trustworthy person. Since the launch of Hawkins mashed potatoes, although it has been sold for 10 copper coins per serving, it is almost as expensive as a roasted chicken leg. Despite this, there are still many students who buy it. Not only that, more and more teachers wearing wizard robes of different colors come to the student cafeteria just to eat a meal of Hawkins mashed potatoes. You know, these wizards have never eaten at the same table with students, after all, their identities are different. "Brother, why did you insist on naming it Hawkins mashed potatoes at that time?" Henry asked while eating mashed potatoes and roasting bacon. "I don't have only you as a brother." Daniel pushed him jokingly and said, "If nothing unexpected happens next year, David will also come here to study, after all, he is also a member of Hawkins." At this time, Henry Hawkins, enjoying the delicious food in the cafeteria, got along well with his brother Daniel, and no longer had the hostility towards his brother in the past. On the contrary, the more he observed Daniel's behavior towards others, especially the lower-class people in ordinary professions, the more he respected his brother. Coupled with his brother Daniel's magical talent, he began to understand that in the face of absolute talent, it is better to hold on to his brother's thighs instead of confronting him. So, Henry Hawkins gradually became plump and became a veritable little fat man after eating and drinking in the cafeteria every day. Henry ate the last piece of steak, swallowed it too fast, and it got stuck in his throat, and he coughed for a long time. Daniel patted Henry's back and put a glass of red wine in his mouth. "Why eat so fast? No one is competing with you. Now the whole kitchen belongs to our Hawkins." Henry coughed and said, "Jiggy. Jiggy." Daniel got goosebumps when he heard it. He didn't expect to hear such words after traveling through time. It was both friendly and disgusting. "You should call me brother in the future." "Brother, I suddenly thought of something fun," Henry said after taking a big sip of red wine. "What's fun?" Daniel's eyes lit up. "Look, brother, after my observation, almost all wizards have come. Only Principal Mueller has not seen him in the whole college. Do you think Principal Mueller will come to the cafeteria to eat a portion of Hawkins' mashed potatoes?" Henry said. "That will definitely happen." Daniel was sure. "How do you know?" "It's been 2 months. Principal Mueller should have known about our mashed potatoes a long time ago." Henry said, "If he would come, he should have come a long time ago." "So, you think he won't come?" Daniel said. "Yes, he won't come. Wizards are different. It's okay to lower your status, but Alex is the principal. How can he eat with us?" Henry vowed. "Okay, how about a bet?" Daniel said, "I am very sure that Principal Mueller will come, and he will appear in this cafeteria at noon tomorrow, unless he has something to do and doesn't go to work tomorrow." "Okay, brother, what do you want to bet on?" Henry said. "All your pocket money for next month, and the milk you help collect for the kitchen next month." Daniel said. Henry thought for a moment and said, "What if you lose?" "If I lose, I will give you 3 times the amount of pocket money that your aunt gives you next month." Daniel said. Henry Hawkins fell into deep thought. If he really went to collect milk, what would his classmates think of him? He is a wizard, and he has spent a lot of effort and investment to become a wizard. If his classmates saw him collecting milk in the backyard, they would definitely laugh at him to death. In this world that values status, he would be dead forever. But at the same time, he thought that he could become a wizard because of his brother. Humph, without his brother, he might not be able to become a wizard, so he accepted his brother's bet. For Daniel, this was a sure bet. Brother, you said that if Principal Mueller doesn't come tomorrow, you will lose. Henry said confidently. He felt that he had won the bet. After hearing this, Daniel smiled and said nothing, but stared at the wizards coming and going in the cafeteria. In addition to the red and orange robes, robes of other colors have appeared. What he is waiting for now is the orange robe. He knows that the orange robe is second only to the red robe, that is, the subordinate of Principal Mueller. After waiting for about 20 minutes, during which Henry ate 2 more mashed potatoes and a glass of red wine, Daniel finally waited for the appearance of the orange-robed wizard. At this time, most people in the cafeteria had left. Daniel quickly nudged Henry with his elbow. Here it comes, listen carefully. Henry looked in the direction of his brother, and heard the orange-robed wizard say, 2 Hawkins mashed potatoes. Sorry, it's sold out. A young cook said. What? Sold out? Are you new here? Said the orange-robed wizard. How do you know? Said the young cook. Ask your chef to come out. Before the orange-robed wizard finished speaking, a chef who looked older came over and said, Sorry, he's new here and doesn't know anything. 2 servings of mashed potatoes, yes, yes, yes. Give more, you know, these are for Principal Mueller. The orange-robed wizard said seriously. I know, I know, I know. The older chef handed the mashed potatoes that had been prepared and packaged to Principal Mueller and smiled, it's all for everyone. Daniel and Henry were sitting at the window closest to the meal, so they both heard clearly. Brother, it seems you have to prepare 3 months' worth of pocket money for me quickly. Henry looked triumphant. Haha. Daniel said, Brother, don't be impatient. Daniel walked forward and said to the orange-robed wizard, Hello, my name is Daniel Hawkins. Ah? Are you Hawkins? The orange-robed wizard looked Daniel up and down. Is this mashed potato your masterpiece? Daniel pretended to be humble and bowed, that's right. Not bad, your mashed potatoes are delicious. The orange-robed wizard said, but as a wizard, you still have to spend your energy on learning magic. Of course, that's what the teacher taught you. Daniel bowed slightly and said. Perhaps due to Daniel's humility, or perhaps the addition of Hawkins' mashed potatoes, the orange-robed wizard had a good impression of Daniel Hawkins in front of him, not at all as bad as Principal Mueller said. I couldn't help but wonder if Principal Mueller had made a mistake. Then, just listen to Daniel say, you know? As the founder of Hawkins' mashed potatoes, if the mashed potatoes are packaged, the taste will be much worse over time. It is best to eat them on the spot. The taste and temperature are the best. For the best enjoyment. Chapter 27. Cream and Posters. The next day, Daniel and Henry saw a flash of red in the dining hall. Everyone saluted to Principal Mueller. After he nodded to them hurriedly, he went directly to the lunch counter. He knew that Daniel Hawkins, who was sitting next to the lunch counter, also saluted with him, but he pretended not to see it. 2 servings of mashed potatoes, said Principal Mueller. Are you talking about Hawkins' mashed potatoes? Principal Mueller nodded quickly with a serious face, yes. After getting the mashed potatoes, Principal Mueller quickly sat down and took a bite while it was hot. This bite made his expression soothed a lot, but soon became serious again because he found Daniel looking at him and smiling. Due to the copying system, Daniel mastered various magic skills faster than his students. In less than half a year, he had mastered everything Mr. Dillon taught him. However, although he learned quickly, it did not mean that the teacher taught quickly. It took more than half a year before he mastered skills such as flash, time distortion, and mirroring. Daniel took the initiative to find Teacher Dillon more than once, hoping to teach him more magic. But Teacher Dillon is very stubborn. On the grounds that they are in the same class, Alan Hawthorne and others must master it before they can learn new things. This was too slow. Although he could learn offensive magic in the second half of the year, he thought that the person who taught him ice magic skills was still Mr. Dillon, and there were also 2 people with the worst learning abilities, Anthony Miller and George Malong is his classmate. In this case, he will be able to graduate in the year of the monkey and the month of the horse. However, in the past 6 months, he has made a lot of money by relying on the levitation technique. He can earn 10 silver coins a day. In the past 6 months, he has earned more than 10 gold coins. Anyway, David Hawkins' tuition has been taken care of. Since he had plenty of time and a comfortable life, he didn't rush to upgrade his skills. It would be useless if he upgraded anyway, he thought. So he spent a lot of time in the market and in the kitchen. Although Daniel and Henry ate for free, it was not good to eat for too long, and they did not sign a free meal contract with the chef, so he still brought out new products for the chef on a regular basis. It is not easy to come up with new products in this world. After all, it is not as fully equipped as Blue Star in the kitchen, so it still takes some thinking to combine the current tools to create new products. Daniel found a clean container and poured fresh milk into it. Fearing that it would spoil, he turned on the ice shield to keep the milk in a cool environment. After waiting for the butterfat to rise, he gently took out the upper layer of butterfat with a spoon. Daniel said, "Chef, this is whipped cream." The head chef leaned forward like a curious child and nodded, "But what's the use?" "Don't worry. I saw Daniel put it into a mixing bowl. Since there was no electric beater, he could only beat it with his hands. In this way, he worked hard for a long time before whipping it up. Add some salt or sugar to taste. It can be paired with fruit, coffee, bread, or even barbecue. It has a rich taste. This is Hawkins cream." The head chef praised repeatedly, "Mr. Hawkins, you really did a great job with milk. It seems like such a simple thing, but I have been cooking for so many years, why can't I figure it out?" Daniel patted the chef on the shoulder and smiled, "Keep working hard." Although Daniel had a copy system, it couldn't stand up to the Academy's procrastinating teaching system. Just when he was suffering from the slow progress of teaching, he seemed to see a turn for the better on the bulletin board in the college hall. Almost all the tasks posted on the college's bulletin board are tasks commissioned by citizens, and a small number of tasks are commissioned by nobles. The reason why the nobles want to entrust them is: most of the tasks commissioned by citizens are real. They are nothing more than monsters sneaking into their lives, or someone is missing and they need help finding them, or monsters invaded when they were farming. Some of them are not monsters at all, but just some wild wolves and wild boars. Most of the nobles have their own fighting forces. If they issue a commission, it means that these nobles cannot handle it themselves and come to the Academy to find help. There is also a situation where Principal Mueller solicits nobles to put on a facade commission, just to prove to outsiders that Dawn Wizard Academy can also handle difficult commissions. Of course, there is no doubt that the bounties given by nobles are usually higher than those given by commoners. Daniel wants to accept it, but there are requirements on each commission. A wizard student of at least 4 years is required. Wizard students who have been studying for more than 4 years, might as well just say students who have completed their studies. And even ordinary civilian tasks require at least 2 years of wizard students. If it weren't for these restrictions, Daniel would have accepted commissions to make money long ago, because he saw that most of the tasks given by civilians were just to kill monsters. If he couldn't defeat them, he would just upgrade the ice cone technique, and he could always defeat them. Just when he was bored, he saw a poster, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Rock Kingdom Wizard Academy Competition. He looked at the introduction. Registration for the National Wizarding Academy competition is now open. Is your college the best college? Are you the best wizard in your academy? What are you waiting for? Come and prove yourself quickly. Haha, Daniel smiled and said, "Prove yourself, why should I prove myself?" He skipped these and quickly looked for the reward column. After searching for a long time, I found that the winner could be awarded a title by the king himself. Granted the title. Daniel muttered, that means he can become a noble. However, the poster did not say what kind of noble he could become. The lowest level of noble status is knight, but this is for civilian warriors like his father. For wizards like Daniel, they can skip knight and start directly from the title of baron. Although it is also a low status, at least they can get a small territory, own their own land and people, and have a certain control over the things on the land. If this is the case, Daniel Hawkins can not only lead his family out of the slums as quickly as possible, but also start his farming career. It can be said that participating in a competition can make a class leap. Moreover, he also found that the champion can also get a reward of 20 gold coins, which is really a huge sum of money. What surprised him even more was that this competition did not have any restrictions on the contestants. This is good news, it's settled. Daniel rubbed his hands, he looked at the date, my god, today is the final deadline. He slapped his forehead, blaming himself for not noticing this thing when he was so idle and wandering around. He had originally thought of signing up after dinner, but now he couldn't wait any longer and went to find the green-robed wizard. Chapter 28. Registration. Ever since Paul Mueller became the green-robe wizard of Dawn Wizard Academy under the recommendation of his brother Alex Mueller, he has been busy all day long. After all, he was in charge of the entire Academy's accounts, which was fine. Later, he was in charge of the Academy's various activities registration, and even the poster promotion and design. I still remember that when he was promoted from a blue robe wizard to a green robe wizard a few years ago, he originally refused. Although the green robe is one level higher than the blue robe, in his opinion, the green robe and the blue robe are essentially the same. Not only do you have to teach, but you also have to manage accounts. You get a little more salary a month, but you have a lot more work. He has always liked to be idle, so he really doesn't like this job. He proposed to his brother Alex several times to surrender, but Principal Mueller refused every time. Even at the last time, Principal Mueller had no choice but to say to him directly, "Dear brother, you work for a year first. If you still don't want to do it after a year, I will definitely agree to whatever you want to do." In fact, it didn't take a year. After a year, he found that this job was really good. Not only did it become easier and easier, because many teaching courses didn't need him to teach in person at all, but the more he worked, the fatter his wallet became. In addition, the busiest thing was collecting tuition at the beginning of the school year. For example, the rules of this National Wizard Academy competition stated that each academy could send a maximum of 2 wizard students to participate in the competition. However, since the announcement last month, except for the 2 outstanding students that Principal Mueller had already appointed, no one has signed up to participate so far. So this activity was still leisurely for him. Also, what surprised him about this job was that with more accounts, the operating space would naturally become larger and larger. The accountant only needed to explain each account well. Therefore, being a green-robed wizard is a job that requires a lot of explanation skills. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile. Today is another idle day. Paul Mueller stood up from his chair, stretched his back, yawned, and wanted to have a good sleep after lunch. Just as he put the spell book back on the bookshelf and put the feather pen into the ink bottle, he was about to go out, thinking that he would go out to make 2 meals of mashed potatoes later, and heard a dong 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 knock at the door. Paul Mueller was unhappy. It was already this time, why did someone come to disturb him, and how dare someone come to disturb him? However, he quickly put away his expression and said in a serious voice, "Come in." A gray-robed student came in. He was even more upset when he saw that it was a student, and asked very bluntly, "Which family are you from?" "Ah? Why do these people ask about origins as soon as they meet? It's better to be in the Blue Star country before crossing." I'm from the Hawkins family." Just when Daniel was about to say bluntly that he was not a noble, Paul Mueller said, "Hawkins? So what is the relationship between Hawkins mashed potatoes and your family?" "That's my work," Daniel said. After hearing this, Paul Mueller's unhappy mood was swept away, and he said, "I like your mashed potatoes very much." Just when Daniel was about to thank him, he heard Paul continue to say, "If you can't graduate, you can still be a cook in the future, which is also a way out." Daniel thought, is the other party praising him? Why does it sound weird? "Okay, stop talking nonsense, tell me, what do you want to talk to me about?" Paul Mueller just sat down. Before Daniel could speak, he said, "I know what you are here for. Students come to me for these things. Are you here to pay the tuition?" Daniel shook his head. "Is your wand broken?" Paul Mueller said, taking out a wand from the drawer and handing it to him, saying, "I'll give it to you for free." Daniel still shook his head. "Teacher, actually I am." He was interrupted before he finished speaking. "Are you trying to settle your tuition arrears?" Paul Mueller said, "This place has been passed. You should go home and think of a solution with your parents. I want to participate in the National Wizard Competition." Daniel said loudly. "What?" Paul Mueller looked unbelievable. Daniel took out a folded poster from his pocket, spread it out and slapped it on the table, saying, "I mean I want to participate in this. Why did you tear it up?" Paul said. "It's the last day anyway." Daniel said. What year are you in? Paul squinted his eyes and looked at Daniel. I'm a freshman, I enrolled this year. Daniel said seriously. What are you kidding? Paul Mueller thought the other party was just messing around. Do you know that each college can only send 2 students to this competition? So? Daniel spread his hands and shrugged. So? So those who can represent the college are the elite among the elites. Why are you, a freshman, joining in the fun? Paul Mueller said. But it doesn't say that freshmen are not allowed to sign up. Daniel said. Go away, stop making trouble. Paul Mueller said, besides, 2 students have already signed up, and it happens that these 2 students are the best students in this college. So you have already made the internal selection. Daniel said, if you have already made the internal selection, why bother posting this poster? It's just taking off your pants and farting, it's disgusting. What did you say? Paul Mueller never expected that a freshman would dare to speak to him like this. Do you have the guts to say it again? You've already heard it, so why bother? After Daniel finished speaking, he rolled his eyes at him, turned around and left. When the time comes, I will publicize any activities announced by the college on the bulletin board for you. What the hell are you talking about? That's inexplicable, Paul Mueller said. I will promote it when the time comes. Don't participate in such activities in the future. They are all pre-arranged anyway. I will save everyone's time by promoting it. Isn't that good? Daniel opened the door. Just when Daniel was about to go out, he heard Paul Mueller say, okay, you want to register, right? I will register you now. But you have to know that after you register, there will be 3 students fighting for 2 places. That means we have to hold a tryout. Daniel looked back at Paul Mueller. Paul Mueller looked at him and thought he was scared, so he said, it's too late for you to regret now. You should go back and think about tactical countermeasures. I hope your seniors can be merciful to you. Now, you get out of here now. The moment Daniel closed the door to Paul's office, he couldn't help but cover his mouth and laugh. He was originally prepared to fail in the registration, but he didn't expect to succeed in the registration. It was really unexpected. Chapter 29. The Hawthorne Family. In the dining room of the Hawthorne family castle, the long dining table is covered with the family crest. The family emblem is based on a dark red shield. In the center of the shield is a black-brown walking bear, showing domineering and mighty power. For Earl Martin Hawthorne, this family crest can very well reflect his temperament. After all, he grew up from a young soldier, then officially became a warrior, became the captain of a small team, and then from this captain became a 100-year-old captain, then captain of thousands, and then worked all the way to knight, baron, viscount, and finally became the current earl. Martin Hawthorne told his family about his successful experience again. Alan Hawthorne and his brother Mario Hawthorne have listened to their father's insults for almost 20 years, and their mother, Elena Hawthorne, has even had calluses on her ears. But the 3 of them just ate in silence at the dinner table, quietly listening to the old man's various boasts. After Martin Hawthorne finally finished bragging, he stared at Alan and said, Alan, I heard that you went to the alchemy department to grow anemones. What's going on? When Alan heard this, he couldn't help but trembled in fright. His eyes had nowhere to rest, so he simply focused his eyes on the beer in his hand and said nothing for a long time. After a while, a cup was smashed over, knocking the cup out of Alan's hand accurately, and Martin Hawthorne said angrily, I'm talking to you, do you hear me? Are you deaf? What are you doing? Elena shouted to her husband, can't you just talk to me if you have something to say? You have something to say? Martin Hawthorne said angrily, look at this brat who doesn't even have anything to say, so how can he have anything to say? I ask you again, why do you plant anemones? I spend so much time, how much money do you have to go to the alchemy department? Those are the departments where only the lowest level wizards and the least promising wizards go. Faced with Martin Hawthorne's repeated words, Alan remained silent because he knew that if his father could bring this matter up at the dinner table, he must know all the causes and consequences. What my father needs now is a vent, not an explanation. Sure enough, Earl Hawthorne said next, have you not mastered even one levitation technique? Are you worse than a poor person? After hearing this, Alan clenched his fists and felt dissatisfied, but he had no words to defend himself. However, this made him even more aggrieved. He could only gnash his teeth and tremble all over. No matter what, that teacher can't punish students like this. This is a waste of our children's time and talent. Elena Hawthorne looked at Alan with a distressed look. You should be punished. You can't even compete with a poor man. Can you call him a genius? I also heard that the poor man mastered the levitation technique in one day. That's called a talent. You have brought shame on our family. Alan finally couldn't bear it anymore and stood up directly by slamming the table. There must be fraud. There must be something wrong with that Hawkins. Haha, whenever there is a problem, you say that others have problems, then tell me what the problem is. Martin Hawthorne mocked. Alan sat back down again as if frustrated. I don't know. You don't know? Very good. I'll tell you the reason. It's because you're not as skilled as others, and you're lazy. I didn't. Alan felt aggrieved. He could scold him for anything, but he would definitely not accept scolding him for being lazy. Father, do you know how hard I work? Martin Hawthorne pointed at Alan and said, You cry? If you cry, I will dig out your eyes. Okay, stop talking. Alan will work hard in the future. Elena Hawthorne quickly changed the subject. By the way, wasn't Mario selected by the college to participate in the national wizarding competition? Sure enough, the person who understands Martin Hawthorne must be his pillow. As soon as Elena's words came out, his anger was relieved a lot, but he still said to Alan, Look at your brother, he has been there since he entered school. He has always maintained the first place, and no one in the same school year can surpass him, and now he is the first in the entire college. Alan, you were ranked number 1 when you entered school so quickly by the guy named Hawkins. Don't embarrass your brother, don't embarrass me, and don't embarrass our family. At this moment, Alan's face was no longer angry, replaced by a numb expression and dull eyes, and his brain was gradually dulling. It seems there was a little accident. Mario Hawthorne said. What's going on? The 3 Hawthorne people all looked at Mario, and Martin asked. What's going on? Martin thought to himself, could it be that another commoner who surpassed the Hawthorne family appeared? Originally, no one signed up for this competition. Everyone is very self-aware. It was originally decided that the top 2 students in the entire college would participate as representatives. However, for some reason, the green-robed wizard informed us before school. Let's have a qualifier. No, there are still masters. Martin Hawthorne asked doubtfully. How is it possible? My son has already said that he picked the top 2 in the academy. No matter how expert that person is, can he still be better than my son? Our Mario is number 1. Irina said proudly. Alan looked at his brother, and saw the dignified and gentle attitude of his father and mother towards him, and couldn't help but feel envious. He also knew that relying on self-pity for these treatments was useless, so he could only secretly vow to do his best. I dare not say he is a master, after all, he is just a freshman who has just entered the school. Mario said, there are only 2 places. According to the rules, he must at least defeat the second-ranked student before he is eligible to participate. Freshman. Alan felt a strange feeling in his heart. First of all, this student could not be outside the key class. Second, it could not be Luca and his friends. If they really signed up, he, as their boss, could not be unaware. So after excluding them, there is only... Brother, is that freshman called Hawkins? Alan asked. Hawkins. Martin Hawthorne murmured, thinking, why is it this guy again? If he beat Alan in the progress of learning levitation, this is normal. To be honest, although Earl Hawthorne scolded Alan at the dinner table, he never really thought highly of Daniel Hawkins in his heart. The reason why he treated Alan like this tonight was nothing more than to give his youngest son some warning. As for levitation, his real thought was that Daniel Hawkins was just a coincidence. In the end, Alan would definitely win the first place in the school year. But now when he heard that Daniel Hawkins was going to sign up for the national wizarding competition, Earl Hawthorne just found it funny and couldn't help laughing out loud at the dinner table. Chapter 30, Not Surviving Next Week. What's so funny? Elena Hawthorne patted her husband's broad shoulder and asked. It must be said that Earl Hawthorne's hearty smile dispelled the depressing atmosphere just now. Just listen to Martin Hawthorne laugh and say, Daniel Hawkins, I really damn remember this name. Could it be that he mastered the flotation operation all of a sudden and thought he was a genius? He can challenge all the people at will. The most powerful student in the college? This is a newborn calf who is not afraid of tigers. He is still brainless. Regardless, his courage is commendable. As soon as the father's words came out, everyone burst out laughing. Alan felt weird at first, but only what his father said was the most logical, but he still felt a little unable to explain it. Anyway, he laughed first before talking. Martin Hawthorne continued, I would rather you be ranked second now. Why? Mario Hawthorne took a swig of dark beer. In this case, you can teach that Daniel Hawkins a lesson with your own hands. Martin Hawthorne glanced at Alan and said, by the way, avenge your brother and let him know that our family cannot be surpassed casually. Mario Hawthorne had a different view, it's not a glorious thing to defeat such a newcomer. Martin Hawthorne was stunned for a moment, then laughed loudly, that's right, that's right. You always keep your honor in your heart. You are indeed my great son. Elena Hawthorne also smiled broadly. Alan Hawthorne drank in silence. Morningside slums. After Daniel Hawkins told his family about signing up for the wizarding competition, they were all stunned and didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, Rob Hawkins said, while you have the opportunity now, cancel your registration as soon as possible. Mother Emma Hawkins said, yes, son, I know you are very talented in magic, but this is no joke. Rob Hawkins nodded and said, when I was a knight, I worked as a staff member of this competition and was responsible for maintaining order. Although they were all students, once they entered the battlefield, they were merciless. The injuries were minor, and some even lost their lives. Henry Hawkins said, yes, I have also heard from tutors about this competition. It is all about competing with the best wizard students in the country. Besides, brother, no matter how talented you are, all the magic skills you know are too few, what you have now are just practical skills. Daniel Hawkins said, don't worry, I know what's going on. Susan Hawkins said, eldest nephew, I'm not telling you, it's better for people to have some self-awareness. William Hawkins blew out a puff of smoke and said, your aunt is right. After dinner, Daniel Hawkins returned to the room and counted all his money. There were 25 gold coins in total. He clicked on the system panel. Practical skills column. Levitation technique. Teleport. Flash. Time distortion. Sheep transformation technique. Among them, time distortion, to put it bluntly, increases the movement speed in a short period of time. If someone is within his casting range, the movement speed can also be increased together. This is the result of his study in the past 6 months. With such a slow learning progress, can he not participate in the competition? Skill-based skills have not changed much. Ice Shield LV2 upgradable. Icicle skill LV1 can be upgraded. He thought for a long time and decided to upgrade the Ice Shield first. After all, he didn't know how strong the opponent he would encounter next was, so it was wise to save his life first. Ice Shield upgraded to LV3. Spend 15 gold, do you want to upgrade? Yes. Upgraded. He only has 10 gold coins left now. If he wants to continue upgrading the Ice Shield, he needs 20 gold coins. He has no money left. It's just right. He can use the remaining money to upgrade Ice Cone. After one operation, and now his skills are Ice Shield LV3 upgradable. Icicle skill LV2 can be upgraded. Ho ho, one day back before liberation is another day of being pauper. Fortunately, he didn't have much to spend. He still had a bunch of magic potions that he had stored up before. There was only 1 week left for the qualifying competition. During this week, he planned to continue to use levitation in the market to make money. However, I have to say that business has gotten worse recently. Maybe those people have experienced everything they should experience, and it is indeed not cheap to spend 1 silver at a time. Otherwise, give them a discount during this period and earn a little bit. Just before he was about to go to bed, he remembered a value that he hadn't seen for a long time, and he couldn't help but focus on the upper left corner of his sight. Life, 200/200. Magic power, 400/400. About to close the interface. After a while, he suddenly sat up and looked at the numerical value in the upper corner again. No, he was not equipped with any wand now. He was not even wearing a wizard's robe, although the Academy's robe did not increase any attributes. In other words, this value is now his starting value. He quickly picked up the ogre wand and saw the value changed. Life, 350/350. Magic power, 600/600. Not bad, not bad. This is really an unexpected surprise. It seems that with the improvement of skills, the health value and magic power will also increase. However, it would be nice if he had more money, so that he could continue to upgrade his skills. He doesn't know what kind of opponents he will face in the qualifiers. No matter what, even if he didn't pass the preliminaries, his opponent would have to attack him. He thought that if he could copy even 2 moves, it would be worth it. He also thought about asking Rob for some more money, but then he thought about it and decided not to. After all, his father finally found a job as a guard for a lucky shop. In fact, this profession in Blue Star is called security guard. As for the lucky shop, it is actually a pawn shop. As for the mother, she did housework and did the laundry for others. Alas, what will happen to mother's hands if winter comes? No matter which world we are in, money is a hard currency. Unexpectedly, after time travel, we will still have to worry about money and find a way to make money. It would be great if we could win this game. In the midst of his random thoughts, he slowly closed his eyes. At the training ground outside Dawn Wizard Academy, John Dillon scolded Daniel in front of everyone. Who told you to sign up? The Luca Rossi quartet looked at Daniel and laughed. I didn't expect you to be so brave. Daniel Hawkins smiled. Yeah, I'm super brave. John Dillon looked at Daniel with a playful smile. It's okay now, you can't even quit. I never said I wanted to quit. Daniel said, I really want to participate in the competition. Idiot, idiot, after learning a little bit of 3-legged cat kung fu, you think you are a super wizard. John Dillon was so angry when he saw Daniel's casual attitude that he went up and hit Daniel hard on the head. Knocked on the ground. Let's see if you dare next time. John Dillon cursed. Teacher, is there a next time? He won't survive the next time. No, he won't survive next week. Ha ha ha. The noble quartet laughed.